He thought he was in control. How wrong he was.
Come to the dark side driving. It's the dark side driving. Come to the dark side driving. It's the dark side driving movie club.
From the deepest corner of the darkest universe, two brave hosts battle through nameless hordes of ghoulish monsters most foul, all to bring you the eternal glory of the Dark Side Drive-In.
It's the dark side driving. It's the dark side driving. Come to the dark side driving. It's the dark side driving movie club. It's the dark side driving. Come to the dark side driving. It's the dark side driving. It's the dark side driving movie club.
Hey, what's up? It's Shane with Dynamics Media, and I'm joined here with Stefan.
Yearn for the worm.
Yearning for the worm. And you are tuning into the Dark Side Drive-In, which is our horror theme podcast, where we cover movies from the 80s, sometimes 70s, and sometimes 90s. And, smart, attentive listeners are probably like, hey, wait a minute. This has been a while. It's been a minute. Not unlike the movie, this has been the recording from hell. I was trying to think. It's like when one thing goes wrong, it's a house of cards. But we're super excited today. We are covering the awesome 80s classic Lair of the White Worm, or The Lair of the White Worm, 1988.
Yeah, don't forget that the.
Yeah, it's the
Lair.
Not the.
It's the Lair. Yeah.
Very British.
I mean, it's got to be.
It's got to be. So, yeah, super excited and glad to be back. It's been a minute, as the young kids like to say.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, it's not even necessarily just this recording, although we did have a lot of stuff come up that kind of blocked us from recording it.
Sure did.
But also, like, we both got kind of busy with stuff in life, which happens from time to time.
It does.
But yeah, one of the things I wanted to bring up was we previously were releasing our episodes on Fridays, but we're going to be changing to Mondays, correct?
Yeah, I started a new job that's going to require me to have a little bit of a different work schedule during the week, so I need the weekends to finalize the episodes. And so you're going to start hearing episodes on Mondays, but I think for most of you, you're just going to be happy with weekly episodes. So
wow.
Again, apologies. No, I'll own it. Apologies. Again, all the support, super, super appreciated. Again, we even got downloads when we weren't posting episodes for past stuff. Everyone loves our episode, This Stuff. I kind of wish they would start around episode 4 or 5, but what are you going to do?
I was going to say, that's why they drop off after that. It's like, never mind.
Yeah, really.
But it's like, no, that was just us getting started. We're just trying to figure it out. Maybe we'll release like an HD version of it, like a remake. We'll just redo it, but it'll be like
a remaster.
Yeah, a remastered version of it.
That's funny. I would do that movie again. I love it. So
it is a good movie. I just don't think it's on Tubi anymore. So that's a devastating thing.
Really? They took it off Tubi?
I thought they did.
For what reason?
Probably corporate nonsense.
Fucking corporate nonsense.
Let me check the stuff. STUFF. Sweaty Palm. Well, it says that it's available on Pluto TV, which is free. So at least it is available for free places. But
nice.
Yeah. But no, it's no longer on Tubi. Yeah, it was taken off to the detriment of America.
Yeah, these two obituaries are really piling up. So
here's the thing, like they've been talking, like it's almost election season here, and I haven't heard Trump or Harris talk about the stuff leaving Tubi. And that's like the issue that matters the most to Americans. The border? What is that? I don't even know what a border is. I live in Pennsylvania. There's no borders here. But
there's no borders.
But I'm very affected by the stuff's removal from Tubi. That is a life-changing event for me. And neither of the leading presidential candidates or even any of the third-party candidates have brought it up. And it's a real concern of mine. It's like none of my issues matter to the politicians these days.
Well, you're talking about Shaky Voice McGee isn't talking about pertinent information.
Who is that supposed to be? Is that Trump? Or is that Harris?
RFK?
Oh, okay. But didn't he like
that guy? Yeah,
the guy with the brainworms or whatever. I don't know anything about him other than that he like killed a dog and ate it or something. Did he do that? I feel like I can't say that. That might be like
someone was on a podcast. I think it was Rogan. It was either Rogan or like Theo Vaughn. I was Theo Vaughn, and they did a spot on impersonation of how he talks. And I don't even know how you get your voice to do that. So kudos.
Maybe a diet where you largely subsist on dogs that you hit with your car. Is that what that story was? That he hit a hit a dog with his car and he like moved it to the city to like frame somebody for. I don't know. I haven't been paying too much attention this election cycle.
Every time you try to rehash that story, it gets weirder.
Well, it was really weird to begin with, but it's like one of those things. Like,
so he was a dog, and then he got hit by a car, and then what was that movie where Tim Allen turned into a dog? And it was like a remake of an old Disney movie, like the Shaggy DA or something like that. Yeah. Oh my God, that movie's the Tim Allen one's not that good, but the original. It's
just the Shaggy dog, but yeah, it's a remake of an older version, right?
Yeah, and then it's just a guy in a sheepdog outfit punching people. Like there's they have like an actual dog, and he's running, and then they like do a cut take of a guy in a dog costume punching someone, and then it goes back to the dog.
That is an incredible movie. Unfortunately,
it's so good.
Yeah, unfortunately, the Tim Allen remake of the Shaggy dog is not the 1988 classic, The Lair of the White Worm, but if only it could be.
Sure.
All right. We can get off the political stuff since I think I probably have just made a bunch of libelous accusations against RFK Jr. But no, something really happened. No, well, I mean, yeah, I'm not going to lose any sleep at night over it. Hold
His
on.
worms won't either.
RFK dog story. But I don't know if it was like a fake one, like the like an internet thing, like with what's his name and couches.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is this just one of those?
Who, JD Vance?
Yeah, JD Vance. Yeah, remember the JD Vance thing? Yeah.
That couch remembers.
I don't know. It says here he denies eating a dog. So never mind. He's denied eating a dog. So
it doesn't mean he didn't do it.
Well, no, yeah, it is kind of like if you have to deny eating a dog, like maybe you shouldn't be running for president, but who knows? Not me. So anyhow, do you have any, what's the word that we came up with for housekeeping? House creeping?
House creeping. Yeah, we save house creeping for the intermissions, but
well, excuse me.
You know what is next?
No. Is it the creepy questionnaire?
It is the creepy questionnaire.
So now, folks, it's time for everybody's favorite segment, the reason why everyone's here, the reason for the season, the creepy questionnaire, where we go through the toughest horror questions we could possibly come up with to stump the man, the myth, the legend, Stefan himself. And last time
on Dragon Ball Z,
we asked which high school sci-fi movie which high school sci-fi movie stars Elijah Wood, Josh Hartnett, and former Daily Show host Jon Stewart. And you guessed.
Also current Daily Show host Jon Stewart.
Yeah, I know. That's crazy, right?
I guess the Faculty, the Robert
You were
Rodriguez
super correct.
classic.
And we didn't even like cut that out.
We didn't even pretend that I was wrong. Yeah.
What a banger movie. And I think it's a little bit underrated, especially for his library of works. So, but today we've got a very special question.
In what way is it very special? Just because you forgot the real question back at home and now you have to come up with one on the fly?
Yeah, actually, that's exactly why it's so special. It's from the heart. It's the heart of the cards.
But should we hold on? Should we address the 800-pound albatross around our neck right now? Which is that we're recording super late, so our energy might be real weird, like incredibly weird.
So I'm traveling for work. I'm actually currently in a suburb of Colorado. Stefan is in the great state of Pennsylvania.
I'm just at home. I didn't go anywhere.
So it's like 10 or 11 my time, and it's also very late your time. So yeah, it's going to be probably a little weird.
It's just north of
might
midnight.
Be faster. We don't know.
Could be faster. Yeah. Could be more meandering, like a river through a
like a long winding river through a nice field between three mountains. Anywho, yeah. So Stefan,
yes,
are you ready?
I'm the readiest I've ever been.
Okay. Insert dramatic music. Okay. In the 1984 film Gremlins, what are the 3 rules for taking care of a mogwai?
Oh, the 3 rules. Keep them out of the sunlight. Don't let them touch water, and don't feed them after midnight.
I'm like holding my hand up like a psycho. Like you would be able to see me like doing the rules.
But are you like putting a finger down as I get them? Like, or putting a finger up as I get them, whichever one?
Yeah.
But yeah. I as a child of the Gremlins age, well, I mean, I guess not 1984, but like I was a kid watching Gremlins in the early 90s. These rules, I know them by heart, and I've also long since questioned, what do you mean after midnight? Like, at what point is it safe to feed a mogwai again? And also, since like the other mogwai that get created off of Gizmo are like already kind of bad dudes with Tood, like if Gizmo is turned into a gremlin, would he be an evil gremlin or would he be like a good gremlin? Because I always thought, like, why doesn't Billy give Gizmo gremlin powers to fight the evil gremlins? But then again, we've watched both in Gremlins 1 and then more so in Gremlins 2 when he does his like Rambo thing. Like Gizmo is very good at fighting them even as a mogwai. So I guess he doesn't need to be a gremlin.
So do you think Gremlins is better than Critters?
Oh, man. I think that the even though I wish there were more Gremlins movies, I think that the fact that there are so few Gremlins installments works in its favor because there's only 2. They were released several years apart. They're tonally similar, but also like the sort of setting that they're going for couldn't be any more different between like a small town and then, you know, a huge corporate technology building in New York, you know, huge differences, but like still keeping the same tone. Whereas, you know, I think that something like Critters, like that franchise oscillates quite a bit. Like I didn't really enjoy a couple of the latter Critters movies, but I did like the later show that they had on Shudder, which is not on Shudder anymore, which is crazy to me. I don't know how I could watch that. But then again, you know, Critters 2 might be above both of the Gremlins movies. And ironically, Gremlins 2 is actually my preferred of the 2 Gremlins movies, which is almost unheard of. Gremlins 2, the new batch, I actually prefer that. But I think Critters 2 is even above the Gremlins movies. So,
damn.
What do you think? Did you have any opinion on that?
So, I'm so partial to the Gremlins, and it's probably just like nostalgia goggles. Like I just can't like to me, like I just think that these movies are like the cat's ass of like that style of like creepy little guys. Um, I'll have to, you know what we'll have to do? We'll have to do it on the show sometime, right?
What, Gremlins?
And Critters.
Yeah. I actually, well, I don't know if you want me to say on air what my idea was, but
sure, do it.
okay. I thought it'd be a pretty cool idea to do a series, like one of our blocks, but of the twos of those creepy little guys movies. So we do Gremlins 2, Critters 2, and Ghoulies 2. And then if we really want to mess it up, we can do Munchie, which is the second of the Munchies movies.
Oh no.
It's actually so bad. But yeah, that was my idea, is like having a block of I think what I was calling it was the terrible twos or something like that, before I'd already come out with like the terrible 20 or whatever the 20 questions like is. So it's like, I guess now I can't just keep reusing the same word for my alliteration. Right. So I had to come up with a new title for it. But no, that was what one of my ideas was. Are we going to pretend that I might not have gotten it right, though, and then be like, no. Tune in next time to see if Stefan got the rules to Gremlins right? The rules to
I feel like
caring for your Mogwai.
If anyone listening to this like questions like Mogwais and Gremlins, I'm like, come on, guys.
What are we even doing?
Why are you here? That's like a tertiary horror movie. Like, you know what I mean? Like, maybe not tertiary, but it's not like a direct.
What are you talking about?
I don't know. Like, I feel like that movie's not that scary.
Well, no, it's not scary, but it's like, just like I would say it's a horror comedy.
Creepy. Yeah, right.
Yeah, but like they kill people. Like people die.
They deserved it.
What, the old lady from the first one with their electric chair? Their electric chair lift is flying into the street. Yeah, that was awesome.
Oh boy.
But then it has moments like Phoebe Cates' famous story about her dad.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
Like why she hates Christmas, because.
Oh my god.
Oh, that's so good. Such a fun tonal whiplash you get from that sequence.
Ain't that the truth?
But there you go. Once again, I've maintained my crown. That was more open ended than most of these are. That was a fun twist on the formula. That one felt almost like an essay. So I had to name 3 rules for Mogwai.
Yeah, there were a couple other like really like super weird questions. Like one was like, who directed the 2017 horror film Get Out? And I'm like, okay, like
Jordan
some
Peele,
of the stuff's like
that was easy.
And there was a Saw one, so I was trying to not go down that road, even though we all know where that leads.
To crap movies.
To Crap Town. But yeah. So I think we all know that you're the man, the myth, the legend. But if we wanted to know about myths and legends from Lair of the White Worm, what do you think we should talk about?
Well, I can confirm and will affirm that we should yearn for the worm.
Yearn for the worm.
I have some concern that people might spurn the worm. But
I mean, I've got some concerns, but
well, just thinking in the long term, I burn for the worm. All right, that's all the rhymes I came up with, and a lot of them were slant rhymes, like very Dickensian up in here. Or no, Emily Dickinson, not Dickensian. That's Charles Dickens.
Yeah.
Whatever. All right, 1988. The Lair of the White Worm. Let's get into this. But before we do, let's just address another 800-pound albatross around our neck, which is there is some difficult images in this consisting of brief but intense depictions of sexual violence. I didn't remember that, and in many ways I can explain why I didn't remember it, because I don't think it's actually happening in the context as ocean. But the point is, it does show up on screen. Content warning, trigger warning, whatever. Sorry, it was the 80s, and it's Ken Russell, so he's gonna do some flamboyant, weird, crazy imagery with like crazy musical stings. That's just his milieu. So Yes, I didn't even think about it. I should have brought it up last time in case people watched it. Friend of the show, Chris, was the first to bring it up and be like, what are you doing? I'm like, sorry, man. Sorry. So I'll just address that now. Boom. There you go. It's been addressed. Consider it addressed. All right, now let's move on without any awkwardness to the cast and crew. All right. So we have a double threat here with writer and director Ken Russell. I first encountered Ken Russell with Altered States, which I think I watched Altered States when I was like in high school. It was definitely like one of those movies where it's like, I don't really get it, but I understand it's very stylish and interesting, and there's like a lot going on here.
I don't get it, but it'd be a lot cooler if I did.
No, I mean, I think that even then I understood that like it's me. Like I'm not the person for this movie.
Right.
Did you ever watch it? Did you ever watch Altered States?
Yes.
Okay. Well, there you go. That's probably his most famous other movie too, but I'm going to go into some other ones just because he has a pretty huge filmography, but not all of them are notable, I would say. You know, a big part of Altered States is probably like the psychedelic weird sequences and also the performance by William Hurt, which rules. But some of Ken Russell's other credits, Song of Summer, Women in Love, The Devils, Mahler, Tommy, the pinball kid thing, Lisztomania, but spelled like Franz Liszt, like Liszt, the composer, right?
Yeah.
Valentino, I'd already mentioned Altered States, Crimes of Passion, Gothic, which is another like sort of horror movie kind of thing. It's also on Tubi last time I checked. Salome's Last Dance, The Rainbow, Dog Boys, The Fall of the Louse of Usher. And then one of his more recent credits is a short German film called A Kitten for Hitler, I think. So
was it Ein Kitten für Hitler?
Yeah, it's literally just German for a kitten for Hitler. So there you go, Ken Russell. He's like I said, a lot of other credits. He really likes to do stylistic, like period pieces or musically inclined pieces. Very distinctive style. Often doing both writing and directing duties on the movies he does. So that was just like a brief flyover of a lot of his work, but a lot of it too isn't going to be very recognizable unless you're like a student of this kind of director. So do you have anything you wanted to add to that? I wanted to give you a little room because I didn't have
the plot to a Kitten for Hitler is pretty weird. So
insert what Mark Wahlberg from The Happening. What? No. So,
hey, Hitler.
No, not
holy mother for me.
No, not that. That's just a Saturday Night Live version of Mark Wahlberg. All right, well then moving on. Next up is music, which in this one, that music shows up a lot, especially during like those like vision sequences. Like the music is by Stanislas Sirowitz. I'm definitely probably not saying that right. A lot of I think it looks like Polish titles that I'm not going to try, like Oxy Oryxny. See, I can't even try that. So I'm going to do the ones that I can read. Mad Love, The Holcroft Covenant, The Fantasist, Crossbow: the movie, Chillers, Stalin, Yankee Zulu, True Blue, Crime and Punishment, Showgirl Stories. He has a ton of credits. Nothing really jumped out at me as something that I might have seen. Because even the Mad Love one that was on there wasn't the Mad Love. If you're thinking of like the old like crime noir movie from like the 30s or 40s, it's not that one. It's a different one. So there you go. Did you want to try your hand at some of Stanislas's Polish credits?
He's Russian.
What was that?
He's Russian.
Is it Russian?
Mm-hmm.
But the titles that he did, those aren't Russian titles.
I don't know. Yeah, he's born in USSR, now Russia. He's born in Oblast, Rostov.
I'm going to try to read some of the titles now just to prove that I'm right and that they're Polish. Oh, this is going to go so bad for me.
I can't wait.
I know. You're sitting on the edge of your seat. Papirove Malzinstu. Victoria Zina Tritsiego. Oh, the way that is Russian sounding now that I was trying to say it. Whatever. I don't know every language on earth, so I guess I'll issue an apology to the nation of Poland.
The great nation state of Poland.
Sure. Heard it here first, folks. All right. Do you have anything else for Stanislaus, or can we move on?
No.
All right. Special effects supervisor is Alan Wibley. I actually picked two different people for like the special effects. Is the two supervisors is a special effects makeup supervisor and a special effects supervisor. The special effects supervisor, Alan Wibley, some really good ones. Excalibur, Venom, but not that one. The Hound of the Baskervilles, the Company of Wolves, Amadeus, Castaway, but not that one. UFO, Rasputin, Bodywork, Reign of Fire, but yes, that one, where Matthew McConaughey jumps into a dragon's mouth and dies. And it's like, well, that's cool. Evil Calls, the Raven, Hidalgo, the movie where, what's his name? Who's the king in Lord of the Rings? Boromir? Oh, wait, no. What's the
Aragon?
Aragon. Yeah, Boromir was the one doesn't simply do this. The one where Aragon races a horse through the desert. If you remember Hidalgo. I did Arn, the Knight Templar, Rambo, the movie where Rambo just kills a bunch of people in like Laos or something. The Way Back, and then No Escape. So
that Castaway, Amanda Donahue's in that too.
I know, it's in my notes. I was gonna say it when I got there, but you
my bad.
You showed my hand.
I feel like Amanda Donahoe does not enjoy clothes.
Yeah, I mean, she's definitely willing to forego them, but then also sometimes she just wears the coolest clothes of all time, so she does both.
That white outfit was sick
with the tricorn hat. I'm going to talk about that once we get there. It's in my notes very prominently. All right, so moving on to the special effects makeup supervisor, Simon Sace. He did some really cool ones. Hellraiser, Hellbound, Hellraiser 2, The Unholy, I Bought a Vampire Motorcycle, and then something called Extremity. I mostly took a pit stop on him for the Hellraiser ones. We all love ourselves a little bit of Pinhead up in here, right?
We do. We have such sights to show everybody.
I saw one of those like memes online where somebody was like advertising like, remember the puzzle box from Hellraiser, the Lament configuration?
Yeah.
And it said, Lament configuration in parentheses, actually works. And someone's like, what do you mean actually works? Like,
what do you mean?
I think what they meant was it probably like actually you can take it apart and make it into the other shape, but it's like, no, it actually works. Who knows? Yeah, I'm definitely not going to buy it now.
You don't like your skin, finish the puzzle.
Yeah, you won't have to worry about skin for much longer, let me tell you. They have such sights to show you, Shane. Okay, next up is a first for us here. I'm going to cover the costume department because the outfits, like I said, the Amanda Donahoe plays Lady Sylvia Marsh. It feels like every scene she has another crazy outfit on. It's really cool.
So good.
Yeah, so it's Michael Jeffrey. He has some interesting ones. Bearskin, Kafka, a little film called Return of the Jedi. Maybe you've heard of it. Greystoke, The Legend of Tarzan.
Who did that one?
Lord of the Apes. Was Return of the Jedi?
Yeah, who was that one? Was that a Lucas joint?
It might have been a Lucas joint, although it wasn't directed by him. Was that when? Because he actually had someone else direct Empire and Return, and I can never. Was it Russ Marquand or whatever who did one of them?
Yeah, I don't remember.
Oh, Richard Marquand. Oh, I think I was mixing him up with an actor from like The Walking Dead, actually. So kind of got my lines crossed. But yeah, Richard Marquand. But no time to worry about that because I have to go through the rest of these credits. Whoops, Apocalypse, Gothic, Salome's Last Dance. So, a couple other ones with our man Ken Russell. Then A Handful of Dust and Getting It Right. So I don't really know many of those movies other than, I guess, Return of the Jedi and Greystoke, actually that Tarzan movie from like the 80s. But yeah, I thought it'd be cool to bring up the costume department and give them a little bit of love because I'm definitely going to be harping on the costuming in this a few times. That's all I really had for like the crew. I was going to move on to the cast, unless there's anything I missed that you wanted to double back on.
No, I think that's good. The outfits were pretty awesome.
I know.
So.
I thought it'd be a cool idea to actually bring up the costume department for once. Well, then we'll start with our top build person, who's also our antagonist, which is Lady Sylvia Marsh, as played by Amanda Donahoe. A lot of interesting stuff. Foreign Body, Castaway, but not that one. But we already brought that up. The Rainbow. So clearly worked with Ken Russell before. Dark Obsession, The Substitute, The Badness of King George, Shame 2, The Secret, Liar, Liar, and yes, it is that one.
I know. She was like the secretary, right?
Wasn't she his boss?
In the beginning? Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah, I thought, she was his boss. A Night in Camelot, Stardust, The Atlantis Conspiracy, Starship Troopers 3, Marauder, The Last Bell, Blue Iguana, Down, The Princess Switch 3. Kind of weird that she's in 2 separate third installments of some other presumably running series. But she had a decent clutch of movies. I definitely do remember her character from Liar, Liar. But a lot of these other ones I definitely haven't seen. Because doesn't she find out that he can't lie, and then he like has that whole scene of just like ripping on everybody in the boardroom or whatever?
Yeah,
it was a funny scene. Liar, Liar. I liked that movie. I don't care what anyone on earth says. I might just be a sucker for that era of Jim Carrey comedies. All right, moving on to the first of our heroes is James Dampton, Lord James Dampton, I guess I should say, as played by Hugh Grant, a famous guy who's spent much of his career in a genre of movies I couldn't care less about, which is romantic comedies. 4 Weddings and a Funeral, Sirens, 9 Months, Sense and Sensibility, Notting Hill, Mickey Blue Eyes, Bridget Jones's Diary, About a Boy, Love Actually. Then he starts getting more interesting stuff. Cloud Atlas, The Man from U.N.C.L.E., Paddington 2, Glass Onion, that more recent Dungeons and Dragons movie, Honor Among Thieves. I thought that was pretty good.
He was so good in that movie.
He was, yeah. And I guess he was in the new Wonka too. I somehow have not encountered the new Wonka movie with Dune in it. Have you seen the
Willy
new
Wonka?
The new Willy Wonka with Dune in it?
Lisan Al-Gaib.
I guess the Lisan Al-Gaib sometimes has to run a chocolate factory. Who'd have thought? The economy's hard on everybody.
Yeah.
That's all I really put down for Hugh Grant. He has other credits, obviously. He's a very famous actor, but like I said, a lot of them are, I guess probably, I didn't even put it in here, but there's a sequel to Bridget Jones's Diary that I think he was also in, right? I mean, I had to assume, unless they killed off his character in the first one and an unexpectedly grisly ending.
I don't know. I've never seen it, so.
All right, well, someone in the audience write in. Tell me if Hugh Grant is in
at Steph.
Bridget Jones's Diary too. At Stefan, just on your web browser. All right. Well, next up then is Angus Flint, as played by Peter Capaldi, one of the Doctor Who's himself. He's
Dr. Wares?
Yeah. One thing we're going to get into with this, and I guess I'll show my hand now, is a lot of these British actors have tons of credits. Like, especially like in like British television and stuff like that. I'm not going to be able to name off every single television program they've ever been in across the BBC networks of shows. I can already hear my mom being like, what the hell, man? Because my mom loves British TV. She watches it all the time. So she's probably seen Peter Capaldi and any number of these people in many things.
So I've got like one criticism for him.
Oh,
I think his first Doctor episode is one of the worst Doctor episodes of all time. Like first, like Doctor Who episodes, like his Doctor intro.
I really don't know if I've ever seen it actually.
It's pretty bad. There's like dinosaurs. It's so bad.
Oh, is it the dinosaurs on a ship one?
No, they're in like London and he like wakes up and like it has amnesia. He like doesn't remember anything.
Oh, okay. Weird.
Cause I think they like had to play it up because it like, technically with their own lore, they wrote themselves into a tiny bit of a corner with, because the Doctor can only reanimate so many times. And
well, Well, didn't he get a whole new set of regenerations though, or something like that?
But that's the whole thing. So I think like to justify, they're like, he can't remember shit. So it was like kind of, I don't know. It was kind of weird, but because I love Doctor Who, and I now after that it gets better. Just that first episode was so rough.
All right. Well, disgruntled fans of what is he, the 12th Doctor? Because 10 was David Tennant, 11 was Matt Smith, and then he was after Matt Smith. So he'd have been 12, right? In any case, people who are upset,
yeah, you're right.
At Shane, because I'm not the one saying it.
Yeah, you can at me at Darkschneid.
No, that's my actual
on.
That's my actual Twitter name, and also video game name. No, not allowed. All right, back to Peter Capaldi. Dangerous Liaisons, Dream Baby, 5 episodes of Neverwhere, Bean, maybe you've heard of it, with Mr. Bean, House of Nine, Wild Country, 5 episodes of Torchwood where he doesn't play Doctor Who. Ooh, this is rough. World War Z. Ugh.
Oh no!
Who allowed that?
Brad Pitt.
Yeah, well, we know that. Paddington and Paddington 2, so double Paddington. You know, hanging out with his buddy Hugh Grant in Paddington 2.
This bro got a double Paddington?
He got a double Paddington. It was in Christopher Robin. 2 versions of Watership Down. I think a television and a movie version. So he just loves that story of animals dying gruesomely. Then the Suicide Squad, the James Gunn one. And then the last thing I put down from him was he's in 6 episodes of Big Mouth, which just seems like a funny and weird thing for him to opt to do. Like, I don't know. It just seems like he would be beyond Big Mouth, but maybe it's a big deal for people.
Who was he in Suicide Squad?
He was the Thinker.
Yes.
Yeah, he was that brainy villain dude who was like working on the Starro project. And he gets a pretty gruesome end himself there. All right, moving on from Peter Capaldi. I know he's been in other stuff, guys. I just don't have time to go through every BBC show for the last 20 years or whatever. We have Eve Trent first. Eve Trent is played by Catherine Oxenberg. A handful of credits: Roman Holiday, Charles and Diana, Unhappily Ever After, Catch Me If You Can, but I don't know if it's that one or not. I should have looked more closely. The Omega Code, Starship Troopers 3 Marauder, so joining Amanda Donahoe in that. Sleeping Beauty, but not that one. Sharktopus versus Whale Wolf, and Ratpocalypse, so 2 absolute bangers of movies. And I think her last credit was a film called Acquitted by Faith. So she has a handful of stuff. You know, obviously, career peaked around Sharktopus versus Whale Wolf. It's kind of hard to do better than that. That's all I really put for Catherine Oxenberg, though. Is there anything you wanted to add, or?
No, I think you nailed it. I'm going through her credits. Like, there's a lot of stuff in here. I don't even know where this was famous or even like people watched it. She was also in Baywatch.
Oh, was she? I must have gone right by that. Yeah, no, she had, like I said, like compared to like the actress who plays her sister, she had a lot more credits. But again, I'm only trying to pick something notable because a lot of these British actors are just in so many things, and I simply don't have time. There's not enough hours in the day.
There isn't.
So next up is Mary Trent. Out of the 2 Trent sisters, probably our main Trent sister, I guess you could say. But I was going in order of how they're credited. So Mary Trent is played by Sammy Davis. She was in Mona Lisa, Lionheart, The Rainbow. So getting some more work with our man Ken Russell. Chernobyl, The Final Warning, 4 Rooms, Woundings, an episode of Lost, and then something called The Double Born. Not a lot of credits for Sammy Davis, which is probably why she received such low billing, despite, again, being the primary sister of the 2 sisters, considering one gets captured partway through and spends most of the movie being held hostage by a snake lady. Next up is an actor who got a special appearance credit. It's Stratford Johns, who plays Peters. He has a ton of credits. He has a very long career and a very British career, so I'm not going to go into every detail. but some big ones. The Lady
How
Killers.
British was it?
Yeah, well, his name's Stratford John, so the Lady Killers, Anastasia, The One That Got Away, Law and Disorder, A Night to Remember, Cromwell, so presumably about Oliver Cromwell, not James Cromwell. It'd be funny if it was like an old British movie about Babe actor James Cromwell. Remember Babe, the pig that could herd sheep? All right, moving on. Yeah, that'll do, pig. Moving on. He was an episode of I, Claudius, which is an underrated miniseries about ancient Rome. He's in Tales from the 1001 Nights. He's in a few episodes of Doctor Who, but I can't remember what era. I think because that's one of the other things about Doctor Who is that it's been around for like since what, the 50s. Like there's so many episodes and so many eras, so it's kind of hard to keep track of it.
Hey, you know what's fucked up about Babe?
What? No, I don't. Tell me.
So like, he was gonna kill him, like straight up, because he thought that the pig mauled the sheep. So he literally was like loading that double barrel shotgun, and then like they went to the perspective of the pig, and it was just like, this looks like a food tube. It's like, what the fuck?
Oh, I forgot about that he believed that he believed that the pig had murdered the sheep and he had to like kill him.
Like, how stupid it, like, I don't know. Never mind. I just thought about that. I'm like, hey, remember the scene where the pig literally thought he was going to eat out of that shotgun? And then, never mind. But yeah.
I can say with complete certainty that I haven't watched Babe in too long to remember the finer points of the Babe story. So homework assignment for me, watch Babe again. Back to Peter's, Stratford Johns. He had Doctor Who, like I said, he was in Foreign Body. So he got to be reunited or pre-united with Amanda Donahoe, who's also in that. And then Salome's Last Dance, so another one with Ken Russell. And he had an episode of Neverwhere. Not sure if it's going to be the same episode of Neverwhere that Peter Capaldi was in, but that'd be pretty cool. All right, no time to talk about Stratford Johns. We've talked about Peters enough. Even though he gets an inordinate amount of screen time for a very side character, which I guess is probably because of this actor being probably famous in like the UK.
Yeah, I'd imagine something like a cameo for like Morgan Freeman or something.
Yeah, like the audience like wouldn't be seated as long as Stratford Johns
like,
is on there.
Shit.
Like, he's gonna say some weird sassy stuff. It's Stratford Johns.
Oh, he's fucking Stratford.
There you go. That's exactly what they said. Next up is Officer Ernie, as played by Paul Brook. Okay, what? Okay. What are you about to do?
Which eyeball do you look into?
That's not chill. That's not very Cash Money of you, just because he has a lazy eye.
Okay, but sometimes the one's off and like...
Anyways, Paul Brook, he was in For Your Eyes Only, the Phantom of the Opera, but I'm not sure which one. It wasn't one that I am familiar with. Return of the Jedi. He was also in Greystoke, The Legend of Tarzan, Lord of the Apes. He's in The Messenger, The Story of Joan of Arc, which I think is the one with Mia Jovovich, but I don't quote me on that. I actually don't know, but I think so. He was in Lighthouse, but not that one, because that one's The Lighthouse. He was also in Bridget Jones's Diary, and he definitely wasn't in the second one. So I assume his character died gruesomely in Bridget Jones's Diary,
along with Hugh Grant.
Yeah, they died together, like in a tragic murder suicide. I don't know anything about Bridget Jones's Diary. I'm assuming that would not make sense tonally, but it'd be very funny.
That's what she wrote about.
That's what the diary was. Yeah. He was also in
her confessional.
Sure. He was also in The Phantom of the Opera, the newer one with Gerard Butler and Emma Rossum, and then. Oh man, I forgot the name of the guy who played Raoul. Oh no, what is that guy's name? He's in like so much stuff nowadays. He was in Insidious. We watched Insidious together.
Insidious.
Deciduous, actually.
Is it the guy in The Conjuring, that guy?
It's the same guy, the very same.
You can never remember this dude's name.
It's like something pretty white sounding. I'm gonna. Here, yeah, Patrick Wilson. It's Patrick Wilson. Chill out.
Patrick Wilson.
It's
Patrick Wilson.
Shut your mouth when you're talking to me.
I'm gonna edit that in that I got that.
Yeah, how dare you? But yeah, it's Patrick Wilson. But yeah, Paul Brook played like the auctioneer at the beginning in that. So there you go. He's also in The Headsman and then a recent version of Oliver Twist. So that's it for Paul Brook.
So like, eye jokes aside, he absolutely crushed it in this movie.
No, he was really good.
He was so good in this movie. So good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't remember him in the Phantom of the Opera. I'm not sure what Phantom of the Opera he was in before it. And in Return of the Jedi, here's one for your Star Wars freaks out there. He was the Rancor handler.
Oh,
the one who cried when the Rancor died. Yes.
Oh my God.
Yeah, little.
I can see it in his face now. I cannot unsee that.
No, it definitely is him. Yeah, it's clearly him. It's a Rancor wrangler.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I almost forgot to bring that up. That's how glad that you kind of brought me back to it. So,
and he cries and oh my God.
Oh yeah, he's upset, man. He liked that Rancor. We all liked the Rancor. There was a Rancor toy that I used to play with at my grandma's house. That by now it's been destroyed long ago. But
by now, Paul Brook is crying over it.
But by the time like I was a kid and got a hold of it, like I think it had like no hands. Like everything about it was just falling apart because of like all of the kids playing with it and just ruining it.
It was on Cobra. It was like on disability.
Well, that's the other thing though, is like my uncle had like, he has a lot of Star Wars figures that he would keep like set up in his room. And those ones were off limits. We couldn't play with those ones. Those ones are set up. Those are collector's items. So if I wanted to see like a factory condition Rancor, I could go upstairs and peep it, but I couldn't play with that one. But the Rancor that was all beat up in the kids' toy box, that was the Rancor we could play with. So maybe we should call up Paul Brook and be like, your Rancor is still alive in my uncle's room with his collectibles. I have to assume.
Nice.
Yeah. Next up is Dorothy Trent, the mother of the Trent sisters, as played by Imogen Clare. She has a few credits: The Music Lovers, The Devils, The Boyfriend, Tommy. You're going to notice a lot of her movies are Ken Russell ones. The Rocky Horror Picture Show, Listomania, Flash Gordon, Shock Treatment, Salome's Last Dance, Billy Elliot, which was a fun credit to see. I don't remember her character in Billy Elliot. Then The Man Who Cried. So yeah, a lot of her credits are very much Ken Russell ones. But guess what she doesn't get to do in most of those movies? Play a snake lady. So there you go, Imogen Clare. Next up.
Hey, can I do this next one?
Do you know who it is?
Is it Kevin?
No, it isn't. It's next up is going to be the dad, Joe Trent. But yeah, I'll let you do Kevin if you want to.
Yeah, let me do Kevin.
Okay, well, let me do Joe Trent first, then I'll toss it to you for Kevin. Okay. Joe Trent, the dad, who only appears in a couple of scenes, is played by Christopher Gable. Women in Love, The Private Life of Sherlock Holmes, The Music Lovers, The Boyfriend, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, but not that one. 4 episodes of Doctor Who, but I don't know what era. And then finally, The Rainbow. So again, most of his credits are taken up by Ken Russell originals. So you get the feeling that he likes to work with the same actors and stuff like that, like a lot of auteur directors tend to do. All right, next up is Kevin. So take it away.
Yeah, I was like really excited to see this person in this movie because of like the time era and stuff. So this one was Chris Pratt, and you know him from like Guardians of the Galaxy, Parks and Rec, Jurassic World.
Oh,
Jurassic
Shane,
World,
I have terrible news.
What?
It's Chris Pitt.
Damn it.
It's a different guy. It's a different Chris. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm so sorry.
I did it again.
I know you done goofed. You goofed it up.
I did it again. Like, are you sure?
Pretty sure, considering that he doesn't look anything like him and is also like, I think Chris Pratt would have been like a kid at this point, right? Like in 1988, I would have to assume.
Yeah, you're right.
So,
damn it.
I'm sorry, sir. I thought you actually researched this dude and found something cool. I'm like, I didn't find anything cool.
God,
like,
no.
What are you talking about?
There's nothing with this guy. That's why this is like the only thing I could come up with. Any bit.
All right. Well, the real Kevin, Chris Pitt, My Beautiful Laundrette, Absolute Beginners, also Lionheart. So, he'd worked in a movie with Sammy Davis.
He got groped by Amanda Donahoe. That's like his crowning achievement.
I mean, it's a pretty solid achievement. For Queen and Country, Skullduggery, The Craze. Like, he's got some credits. Like, I think he had like 22. Most of them are television credits, so not a lot to bring up. You got me on that one with that. You're going to actually want to talk about this dude. It's like, what did I miss in my research? Next is Nurse Gladwell, as played by Gina McKee. And the reason I bring her up is because she's in so many things and we kind of are running out of people in things. So she was in Smack and Thistle, Element of Doubt, The Chest, Notting Hill, so work with Hugh Grant, Wonderland, The Messenger, The Story of Joan of Arc, so worked with Ernie, worked with our man Paul Brook himself, The Zookeeper, but not that one, not the one with Kevin Hart, or not Kevin Hart, Kevin James. Sorry.
What a twist.
That's actually be super funny to mix up Kevin Hart and Kevin James. Oh man, that's my bad.
Happy Ricky.
Hold on.
It's a Secret Life of Pets joke for anybody that's listening.
It is Kevin James in that movie, right? It's like the Paul Blart Mall Cop of Zookeeper movies.
Who the hell knows?
It is. Yeah, it is Kevin James. There you go. I was right. Never second guess me again, except when I accidentally say Kevin Hart instead. But I feel like it'd be the same kind of movie. Going back to Gina McKee, we had Divine Secrets of the Ya-Ya Sisterhood, The Reckoning, Mirror Mask, Atonement, The Borgias, that like Showtime show that had like it had a pretty big cast, right? It had Jeremy Irons in it, I think. Phantom Thread, which was a pretty big award contender a couple years back. And then finally she was in Doctor Who Once and Future, which was like a special, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So it's funny that this woman who plays like a nurse who makes a phone call at the end has like almost more credits than anyone else in this thing. But then I have one last credit. Shane, can you guess what it is?
I guess.
Yeah, and were you surprised, if you looked in the IMDb, were you surprised
Lindsay
to see
Drew?
Who?
Lindsay Drew?
No. Is that someone you want to bring up before I bring up the coup de grace here?
So Lindsay Drew is not really like super famous, but she's in a bunch of really.
Who does she play in this? I don't even know who she is.
She's one of the maids, and she plays in a ton of like weird smut movies.
Oh, so. Yeah. I mean, I feel like that was part of the in joke when they make like a joke in the movie about how like the maids, you have to be like what is it? Hugh Grant's character was like asking if there were any like chastity belts left over in the convent. And he's like, because we're having trouble with our serving staff here. It's like, what? That's such a weird one-off joke to make.
So Lindsay Drew's photo on IMDb, nude photo, which I didn't think they would allow, but they sure have it there.
Oh yeah, this looks like a lot of porn in her. Oh my. Oh, she's in An American Werewolf in London. But yeah, most of these are not. Yeah, these are not. These is NSFW films. I don't even think that I would be fooled by any of these if you were to do that. Like, no. Yeah, what was it? What was the game called?
Sleaze or Slash.
Sleaze or Slash. I don't think you'd even be able to pull one over on me with those ones. No, the person in the credits that I was surprised to see was Jesus Christ. Yeah. As played by Lloyd Peters. And now you may be asking yourself, does this guy look like Jesus? No. It's just a white dude on the cross who's supposed to be Jesus. Seeing Red, Holy Terrors, and then just tons of British TV. That's all he has. I just thought it was super funny to see like a guy cast as Jesus Christ, and he's like the whitest dude of all time. It's like, other than him being on a cross, there's no way to tell that that's supposed to be Jesus. And let me tell you, they put a lot of people on crosses back in the day, so it could have been anyone. All right, well, that was it for the cast and crew, unless there's somebody that you wanted to bring up that I might have missed.
No, I think that's pretty much everyone. I think again it was good to shout out the the costume people, they did a great job in this.
Yeah, they really went all out. It was pretty cool. It was really cool of me to do that.
It was.
Some might say it was very pod racing of me.
Okay. Well, speaking of pod racing,
now this is pod racing.
If we want to zip on over to something else, what would we go to?
Well, I guess I would tell you that we're going to the
Plot description.
music, music, music. Also yearn for the worm. Can you confirm that you burn for the worm? Well, then let us reaffirm that we do yearn for the worm. Okay. Now let me take my turn to help you learn how to squirm for the worm.
How dare you?
I had to look up a lot of rhymes. All right. All right, no time to talk about me Googling words that rhyme with worm, but I can confirm. Okay, Vestron Pictures. That's the logo we start with. We get some credits over a pretty cool looking mountain with a hole in the side of it. Is that the Lair of the White Worm? Maybe. But the movie is the Lair of the White Worm, just so you know. I do like the opening credit font too, like especially for the title of the movie. It's very like gothic looking. There's a lot of stylishness in this. You might say that the worm is quite postmodern. And now that one didn't work as well. Yeah, we get a cool musical sting when the title drops too. So, love that Joker. And this is where I put in my notes, special appearance by Stratford Johns. Again, probably the audience this was made for would understand that. And I don't think I mentioned this at the top when I was talking about like writing credits, but this is technically based off of a novel by Bram Stoker. It does not resemble the Bram Stoker novel at all. So if anyone is upset with me not bringing up that, Bram Stoker is the one who wrote the original novel for Lair of the White Worm, almost nothing about it is all that similar. So yeah, it's pretty loosely based. I think they do give Bram Stoker credit in the IMDb. That's just to stop his notoriously litigious widow Florence Stoker from suing them. That is a joke referencing Nosferatu.
Also, Florence, we're sorry.
Huh?
Also, Florence, we're sorry. Don't sue us.
Oh, she can bring it on. I think it's after it's past the public domain time. Go ahead and try it, Florence Stoker. Go ahead and try to sue us. I dare you. It'd be funny if we get like a cease and desist from like Florence Stoker, and it's like from the beyond the grave. It's like, this is how we learned ghosts are real, because we're getting sued by the ghost of Bram Stoker's widow.
We have to go like ghost court.
Ghost court. I guess I'll have to hire a ghost lawyer. I guess it'll be Daniel Webster. I think I'm referencing
Atticus Finch.
He's not real. But I'm referencing a story by what's his name? Mark Twain, The Devil and Daniel Webster. Is that Mark Twain? Oh no, if that's not Mark Twain, I'm gonna have to like return my master's in literature.
It was Samuel Longhorn Clemens.
Oh no, it was a short story by Stephen Vincent Benet. So
a joke?
No. So why did I think that? Oh, now I know why I thought that, because there was a short story about a frog that Mark Twain wrote, and the guy names the frog Daniel Webster. Nah, whatever. Anyway, that's my ghost lawyer.
Seems a little pointed.
Daniel Webster. Yeah. Anyways, moving on. As the opening credits have rolled, the camera starts to, start to push in on that cave, which really does seem to indicate that could be a lair. Let's find out. Smash cut to archaeology. We meet the first of our main characters, Doctor Who. Wait, no, it says Angus. He's dug up some kind of large, somehow very well preserved skull. It looks like a snake skull almost, but kind of also not. And we get our first appearance of Mary and Eve, whose accents are so difficult to understand that I had to turn on the subtitles because I was really struggling with these opening scenes. But Mary and Eve are giving Angus a good-natured ribbing over his enthusiasm for this skull. They say, oh, it's just Bessie, the cow. Like, they're giving him a hard time about his enjoyment of this, even though he presumably has their permission to, like, I don't know, excavate in their yard. So Mary then concurs that it looks dinosaur-like. But then we get a little bit of archaeology splaining. Angus explains that the layer of flint that he dug to indicates that it would have been less than 1,000 years ago. And the skull is found below the ruins of a convent from 1086. And Mary had guessed 1066 because of William the Conqueror. He's like, close, but not quite. But then the skull... No, hold on. I mistook that. So there's a mosaic from the convent from 1086. The layer of flint is from 1,000 years ago, and this was below the layer of flint. But then because of some Roman era coins that were next to the skull, Angus it suggested it's from the late 200s, because there's a specific Roman empire they bring up, like with Prusius or Crusius or something like that. And he was actually a rebel emperor in exile kind of guy who did stir up his own little empire in the West before the Western Roman Empire fell and had to put a stop to him. So either way, whatever. We don't have time to talk about ancient Rome right now because Angus wants to get back to his excavating. But Mary tells him he needs to stop and get ready for the party. And with some awkwardness here, where Mary explains that her and her sister have been invited to a party at the local lord's house. She wants to invite Angus to escort them. He's concerned about supper, but Mary's like, there'll be plenty of food at the party. And apparently the rest of the guests, because I guess I didn't mention this, the farmhouse is also a bed and breakfast. So there's several guests that stay there. And it's seems like they have a lot of guests, but we only see a handful of them, only a couple of them. But they apparently are there, but usually in bed or away. How
convenient.
Yeah. So the rest of the guests will be doing a potluck at the pub. And Mary says that she bribed them with a hot water bottle. Each one of them gets a hot water bottle. What does that mean? Because it gets brought up again later. What is a hot water bottle? What are they talking about? Is this too British for me?
I don't know. I feel like it's an...
Wow. Gross. Throwback to some really weird stuff from our youth. No,
Youths.
You have to cut that out, by the way, because I'm not explaining that to people who listen to this.
Your mom.
No, not to anyone, not to a single solitary human being.
I'll do the bleep out.
So hot water bottle for bed. What does that mean? Is it just something that people put in their bed to make you feel warm?
It could be hot stones, the same kind of thing.
I guess so. Yeah, it's just a hot water bottle to regulate body temperature and prevent you from getting cold spots in the night. Really? People do that? That's so weird. Okay, I guess that's what it is. It's something to make the bed warmer when people go to bed. All right, whatever. I don't have any more time to dig into this hot water bottle sensation. So we cut immediately to the party. We're moving through this movie relatively quickly to give us more room for scenes of Hugh Grant and Peter Capaldi bickering with one another. We cut to the party where we get a fun musical exposition dump from the folk band that's playing. That basically explains to us that there's a lord named John Dampton, who's the ancestral lord figure, who's actually the ancestor of Hugh Grant's character, who's James Dampton. So there's this conflict with something called the Dampton worm. It was apparently out and about eating cows, sheep, and children until John Dampton battled it and he cut it in half, presumably killing the worm. And that's why he's the heroic lord of the area. And there's a festive pageant thing that happens where some people come out with the worm, like they have like a number of people in it, and then like Hugh Grant, I guess I should call him by his character's name. James like grabs like a fake sword and like mocks cutting the worm in half, playing the part of his like ancestor and stuff, and everyone's just having a good time with it. It's a pretty fun scene. It's a cool way to deliver that sort of exposition. Whenever what is it? Angus is with Mary. He says something kind of dismissive of the whole worm story. And when we get more exposition, as he's introduced to James Dampton, who I mentioned, this current Lord played by Hugh Grant. And he's like, he throws this party for the locals to celebrate the anniversary of the slaying of the worm every year. And this is apparently James's first time doing it as Lord of the Manor. He's taken over recently for his presumably deceased father, because we never see his father, and it's strongly implied he's dead. Yeah, it seems like the interaction between Angus and James is bordering on confrontational after the ladies leave.
Yeah, like constantly.
Yeah. Because James is like the landlord who owns the Trent sisters' farm. So Angus is like, oh, so you have a problem? That's like, no, go for it. Have a good time. And even then starts to get like vaguely interested in the work after he makes an initial joke about the chastity belt thing, which I had mentioned earlier. But then he's like, yeah, go for it. Like, dig it up, do whatever you want to do. And then that's when he gets kind of interested in Angus, and Angus gives a little more exposition about himself. He's a student on a scholarship. He's writing a graduate paper about Romans in Mercia. He tells James that he may have found the ancestor of the worm in the Roman villa. All the while, though, it's kind of a funny scene because as Angus is explaining what he's doing and the work he's doing, James is just scooping food onto Angus's plate. He's like serving him food. I'm like, so looked like they were about to get into fisticuffs earlier. Now they're like buddies. I don't know. Their relationship is so funny in this movie. And Angus remarks like, oh, the skull seems more Tyrannosaurus than worm. At which point James explains, you shouldn't take worm too literally. It's from the old English or German word for Wurm, which is closer to a dragon or a serpent. Perhaps a snake. But yeah, Angus is actually really liking the food that he's eating until James explains to him that it's the local delicacy, which is pickled earthworms. Which I don't feel like that
seems gross. Yeah.
But I mean, British food is pretty gnarly, so maybe. But like, it seems
not that
weird.
Gnarly.
Not that gnarly.
How fucking hungry do you have to be? Like, here's our famous food.
Well, they are pickled, so at least they're prepared. But yeah, anyways, Angus and Mary decide they're going to head home, leaving Eve to stay with James and dance and hang out at the party. Mary and Angus end up cutting through the forest, like a forest path that apparently is how Mary and Eve's parents used to come home from the pub. But that's also the same one they disappeared on one night. It's like, oh yeah, we better definitely go on this path where my parents disappeared.
So did you feel like when they're talking about that, they made it seem like it was a really long time ago? Like her parents like disappearing. Did you get that vibe initially? Like,
yeah, and said it was like just last year or something.
Like, oh, we looked for them for so long. It's like, wait, what? Like, oh, we're going to look again. It's like, wait a minute.
Yeah, it's like, oh, wait, no, like it's very recent. Like people are still like wondering where they are. But yeah. So Angus is a bit curious about like the parents disappearing thing. Because again, this has never been brought up to him. So that's when she explains, oh yeah, there were search parties, but they were never found. No hint of them was ever found. We get more exposition as Mary explains, because like Angus makes some kind of remark about James and Eve seeing each other. But Mary's like, no, they're not dating. James is always jet setting around, so he's not really here very often. But James was kind to the sisters after they took over like the farm when their parents disappeared.
Well, they say when they were orphaned. It's like,
yeah, when they were orphaned, but it was like last year. Like it was super recently.
Boy, we're 30 and we're orphaned.
I know, right? Yeah, they're definitely like just entirely adults. Well, I don't know. Maybe they're supposed to be kind of younger. It's kind of hard to tell because the 80s or most people's ages are kind of inscrutable. But then the discussion about Eve and James's relationship gives Angus the opportunity to awkwardly ask if Mary has a boyfriend. Because it's like, oh, there's no one else to help but James. Like, what about a boyfriend of yours? And Mary's like, no, my boyfriend died in a motorcycle accident. I'm like, oh, cool.
Oh yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah, and then Angus is like, now's my chance, and goes in for a kiss. So there you go. What's more romantic than hearing about how your current love interest's ex has died tragically? The romantic interlude is interrupted by a car driving down a path in the forest, which alarms Mary instantly. She's like, why would a car be driving in the middle of the night with no headlights? Except they definitely did have headlights on. They later explained they were hooded or whatever. It's like, I don't know. It looked like they were just headlights to me. Maybe this is just one of those like
normal headlights.
Yeah, suspension of disbelief moments. And she's like, and why would they be going to an abandoned home? And then Angus asks, oh, did the police look at that abandoned home for your parents? She's like, yeah, that's the first place they did look. And I was like, I'm going to say that's sus considering what we find out later, which is that her snake mom is there. Oh yeah, but they, the two of them get back to the house where we finally meet our man, Ernie, the local cop. He's waiting for Mary. She seems concerned about why he would be there so late. And he takes the opportunity to make some remark about how a guest had to make the tea for him before the guest went to bed. Got tired of waiting for their hot water bottle. It's like, how many times are we going to bring up this hot water bottle thing? It can't be that important.
How are they supposed to sleep?
I don't know, just like a regular person. I actually kind of like being under cold blankets. I think it's a fun feeling. Whatever. No time to investigate this further because Ernie is here to explain that some people were out spelunking or something in Stone Ridge Cavern and found a pocket watch that belonged to Mary and Eve's father. The plot thickens. The worm burns. But there were no other signs so far, but apparently Ernie and some of the others are going to go to search the cavern in the morning to see if they can find anything else. Mary's like, oh, absolutely, I do want to go. So it wants Ernie to pick her up on the way. Ernie goes to leave, and then Mary takes a minute to tell him about the suspicious car heading towards what we now know is called Temple House. I wonder if it's a temple house because there's a white worm that lives underneath it that's worshipped by people who lived there. No, it can't be. It must be a coincidence. Ernie is kind of nonplussed. He's like, oh, well, there goes my early night. He did not want to have to go out and investigate. But then, yeah, we cut to, oh, he's also mean to Angus for some reason. It's like, Angus is like, I'll go with you tomorrow too. And then Ernie's like, it is tomorrow. It's like, okay, man, like, no need to be snippy to Angus just because he's a Scot. Out at the spooky temple house, Ernie sees a lantern moving through the house, through the windows. So obviously sus. Who walks around with a lantern nowadays besides, like, I don't know, a grave caretaker? Ernie, like, here's a scene that's kind of like, did we need this? But I guess it explains more about the local police force, where Ernie tries to radio for backup, right? And the other cop, Charlie,
he's like, oh,
is like,
dinner.
it's like, I'm eating me dinner. And it's like, well, he's like, we'll get a cab and come here. He's like, I can't. I've arrested the taxi driver for drunk driving. And he's like, well, then take your bike. He's like, I can't. My pump is broke. I'm like, what is, like, why do we have time for this weird comedy routine before Ernie is like then promptly bitten by a snake off screen? We just see his reaction. He's like, ow. Suddenly, the lady of the house appears, Lady Sylvia Marsh, lantern in hand, wondering what Ernie is up to, sneaking around her trees in the middle of the night. And this is the first of many awesome outfits, but it was the one you were describing earlier where she has like a long white coat on with like a white tricorn hat. It's so cool.
She's feeling the urn.
She was yearning for the worm. But yeah, so what is it? She's like, he explains that he was stung by a snake, and she corrects him, like, snakes bite, bees sting. Then she offers to have him come into the house. But since she can't find her fuse box to turn on her electricity, She needs help with the lights. Boom, smash cut to inside the house and some suggestive saxophone music, which happens often when Sylvia is alone with a man. You'll notice this. She is attempting to suck the snake venom from Ernie's leg wound, which is a old wives' tale. That does not work. If you get bit by a venomous snake, please go to the hospital. But yeah, so she presumably has managed to suck out the venom. Ernie's like, do you think we're fast enough? Maybe we should call the hospital. And Sylvia's like, no, all they would do is amputate. He's like, haha, you're doing a joke. And then she's like, but what you really need is some brandy. He says, what I can't drink on duty. And she says, you can't be on duty all the time, or you can't be on duty at this time of night. And also, this is purely medicinal. So he's like, okay, fine, your ladyship, I'll have some brandy. It's like, he's not putting up much of a fight here. Then Lady Marsh takes a minute to like start asking Ernie some questions about why he's playing Peeping Tom. And he just explains that he thought that she might be being burgled because he didn't expect her to be back until the spring. And he also heard about a strange car in the Grove. And, hold on. She like says it is spring, and she points to like a little branch she has on her lapel.
Yeah, I didn't get that.
I didn't get that either. There's something culturally going on here that I just don't understand. But then she's like, oh, I change my cars as often as a snake sheds its skin. One of her many like snake quips she'll make to make it very obvious that she is the worshiper of an ancient snake beneath this property. Then eventually Ernie like lets slip that it was Mary Trent who spotted the car. And he also tells Lady Marsh about the search party they'll be going into the cavern in the morning. Then that kind of tells Lady Sylvia Marsh that she'll be able to snoop around the Trent house while Mary's out with the search party. So, cut to the next day. She's there at their house. She goes and observes the excavation site where Angus has been digging. Seems to be like morbidly pleased with this. So that's another indication that she's sus. She enters the house, giving a cursory anyone in kind of thing, just to make sure she has her bases covered. But then confirming that no one is in fact in, she goes to the kitchen and finds a note alongside the Trent father's missing watch. We don't know what the content of that note is yet, but we'll find out later that it's just from Mary explaining to Eve where her and Angus have gone and what was found. Lady Marsh continues her search of the house, going and trying various doors, opening up any that aren't locked. Thank goodness no one's home, because she probably had to murder them in snake form. Eventually, she gets to Angus's room and sees the skull. She approaches the skull with reverence. She gets to it slowly, like runs her hands on it.
Yeah, it was kind of weird.
Yeah, she's like...
That shot was cool, though.
It was really cool, yeah. She was really into this skull. So yeah, she picks it up and goes to take it away. But on her way out, she sees the crucifix on the wall, is not pleased. She hisses and then spews venom on the crucifix.
Yes, yeah, it was pretty...
Just like, yeah, spits venom. And this is our first glimpse of the Lady Sylvia Marsh snake form, which is mostly just fangs and like green slitted eyes that replace her regular eyes. Other than that, she looks mostly like a person. But then Lady Marsh, takes the skull out to her car and drives off, and she like goes down and turns along her road just as James and Eve are driving by in his car, going the other direction, going back towards the house. So she narrowly escaped with the skull. Back at the Trent farm, exiting the vehicle, Eve goes inside while James takes some time to like regard Angus's excavation site. Eve finds the note from Mary, that tells her everything about them going on the search party and all that. Eve is like deep in thought, and James thinks that she might want some time alone, so he goes to head off. Although he also says something about how he may want to take some pictures of Angus's excavation site. Eve goes upstairs, but then she finds the crucifix with the venom spit on it. Okay, so
where it starts getting weird.
just now. So this venom isn't just like venom. It also causes like crazy hallucinations for people who like encounter it. So Eve touches the venom, which starts to give her like this crazy psychedelic vision. We see a lot of things. There's like a group of nuns bowing before a crucified man. When suddenly there's a giant worm serpent that appears and is wrapping itself around the crucified guy, which again is just like a white British dude who's supposed to be Jesus, I guess. We see like a snarling visage of Lady Marsh in snake mode. Suddenly Roman soldiers storm the place and start accosting and like assaulting the nuns as the serpent starts biting on the crucified guy. And Snake Lady Marsh is like standing off to the side watching, really psyched about it. So there you go. It's a pretty quick scene overall. It's just really weird. And it's not like it's shot like realistically. It's like really kind of grainy and like animated looking almost. And like this, like,
yeah, it's like an early 80s like music video.
Yes.
style.
Yeah. It's very like flamboyant and weird and like artsy, which is why, again, I don't know if it's supposed to indicate something that really happened or if it's just like because it's the venom coming from Lady Marsh, it's how she feels about nuns and Christianity and all that. In any case, there you go. That's the vision. We got past the worst of the visions. There's still some more visions to come, but that one was the toughest one. Eve wakes up. She's shouting for Dionin.
Was that the Wanda vision?
Boo this man. Boo. Eve wakes up shouting for Dionin. James finds her and like helps her downstairs to like give her some tea and like ask what happened. And Eve like tries to explain that she saw something on the crucifix, and then when she wiped it off, she claims that she can't remember the vision. But then she mentions that she was holding her dad's watch, and she looks down at it. And then the watch looks like it has like snakes on it. And then that is what prompts Eve's memories. And like, I don't have any idea how that happened exactly. Maybe it's just because like the parents are snaked up or something. I don't know.
Maybe it wasn't a vision.
Who knows? Then she tries to explain to James the vision that she saw. And then James recognizes like, oh, is it a white serpent on a crucifix? And he's like, well, I have to show you something. And Eve's like, no, I absolutely don't want to go look at something. But then he takes her out to the excavation site where now there's a mosaic that has been uncovered by Angus, presumably off screen, that is a crucifix with a white snake like around it. So, you know, Eve's uncomfortable, but she confirms, yeah, that's what she saw. And then the two of them are like, and he's like, well, where's this skull? And then Eve says it's in Angus's room. So they go up to look for it. We know that the skull's gone, so this is a fruitless search. But Angus and Mary arrive.
Dang old skull.
Dang old skull. Angus and Mary arrive just as Eve and James are like, or they're very deep in this search. Like, they kind of like shame them, like, oh, spring cleaning. And then James is like, hey, Eve had a spell. She can explain it more to you. I gotta go. And he just like rabbits. Like, it feels like James is just like, hey, if you find that skull, let me know. And then he leaves. I thought it was kind of funny how, James pretty just leaves. And he's like, we kind of get the feeling that James is like on board with some kind of serpent shenanigans. Like, I expected him to be the one who's like, no, I'm going to be the logical guy. He's like, no, he's definitely thinking some snake stuff's afoot. So yeah, James goes and he drives by like a hitchhiker, who we might know is not Chris Pratt. It's Kevin,
What?
is played by Chris Pitt. It's just a young hitchhiker in like a pretty cool looking ranger hat, like that hat. But then the Kevin goes up to Lady Marsh's car and asks her if, first he asks her if she needs any help if her car's broken down. She's like, no, I'm just out here snake watching, but I guess I won't see any snakes out here tonight. And then he asks her for a ride to the youth hostel, and she says she's going to do it. As they drive, though, Lady Marsh is making a bunch of like suggestive comments, but Kevin's like one of those dudes who apparently has never picked up a signal in his life. He doesn't seem to be picking up on the hints. Yeah. And she's like, well, how about I take you to my house and get you dried off? And Kevin's like, but I'll miss dinner at the youth hostel. And Lady Marsh is like, no, who cares about dinner at the youth hostel? Come back to my place. Back at her house, at the temple house, the two of them are playing Snakes and Ladders, the board game that is, I guess, Shoots and Ladders, but with snakes. Again, because everything Lady Marsh has to be kind of on the nose and snake related. And let me tell you,
into telegraph into stuff.
Yes, for sure. Subtlety is not a snake god worshiper thing, apparently. So Lady Marsh is now in like lingerie and a silk robe. It's like, okay, so this is escalated. She goes to get up to put on some music, but then Kevin starts to play his harmonica because he had mentioned earlier he had a harmonica and could play. And this is kind of a funny scene that telegraphs many later scenes where him playing the harmonica immediately makes her start to dance as if she can't control it when she hears like certain kinds of music. So yeah, she can't not dance to the music. But then once the song stops, she takes away his harmonica. It's like, don't do that again. So yeah, Lady Marsh tells Kevin that the water is probably hot by now. So apparently she had was drawing a bath for him. And Kevin's like, I was like, oh, I guess I can forget about the youth hostel. And then she's like, absolutely. And then starts like kissing him. Then we cut to a bath scene where our man Kevin is just in the bathtub and she's just like kind of laying next to
Caligula.
him. Yeah, she's like laying next to him beside the bath, just like bathing him. It's like, oh, this seems inappropriate. But then what happens is she starts to like, move down on him, presumably to his nether regions, when she goes snake mode and then bites on what I can only assume is his wiener. I don't know, but she definitely gives him
his inner thigh.
His inner thigh, sure. She definitely bites him in the no region. Kevin is now paralyzed, and she just goes into a long, really hurtful diatribe to Kevin about how he's sucks. He should be psyched to be a human sacrifice to the god Dionin, who is not a vegetarian. She makes sure to remark on that. But her speech, making kind of cruel comments about Kevin, is cut short by the doorbell. She's not pleased with this. She had plans to do stuff with Kevin now that he's paralyzed by the venom. Oh, did I mention that the venom paralyzed him so he couldn't move or anything? That's important. The venom has paralytic qualities.
Very important. Yeah.
But then she's like, well, great. Now I have to go talk to somebody. So she just pushes Kevin under the water, presumably drowning him. I never understood why she did that. And I guess in case the venom wore off and he could alert the guests to what was going on.
Or like they came in there.
Yeah, but like, why would she bring someone else into the bathroom knowing she has a paralyzed kid in there?
I have no idea.
In any case, she drowns Kevin. That's it. Kevin's gone. No more. We don't need to talk about Kevin anymore. Get it? Like the movie We Need to Talk About Kevin.
Like Kevin McAllister?
No. Someone out there has seen the movie We Need to Talk About Kevin, and they thought that was very funny.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Okay.
And it was very funny. I'm just...
You just yes-anding me?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah, I mean, Home Alone's got to come up at least once every couple episodes ever since Chud. Yeah. So at the door, it's James dressed in like an officer's uniform, which I think is interesting. I don't know if that's his like going out to do business outfit. He said he is like explaining to Lady Sylvia Marsh that he saw Ernie's ankle and he's arrived to help the lady deal with the snake problem. She jokes that I guess you'll slay it like your famous ancestor or whatever. He's like, no, I was gonna send a groundskeeper to cut the grass. And then she invites him in for a drink, which he accepts. So they go into like her fireside place where the Snakes and Ladders game is still set up. And he's like, oh, do you have children? And she's like, oh, no, I was playing this game alone. It's like, yeah, but it's not like playing chess alone. There's no challenge to playing like Snakes and Ladders alone. She asks if he wants to play the game and James declines. And then he like lays down in the pillows that are set up by the fire, basically taking the now dead Kevin's place. And like, he has no questions about why there's clearly a setup for two people here. kind of a long conversation. I'm not going to get into like the details of it because there's a lot of talky scenes like that. Just get the idea that Lady Sylvia Marsh is saying some really suggestive things while also fishing for information from James about like what the police know, what the Trent girls know, how the search has been going, all that stuff. She does make some kind of joke at the Trent girls' expense about the Oscar Wilde's importance of being earnest. James doesn't take kindly to it. So Lady Marsh is like, realizes she, despite her wiles, mostly working up until this point, James has too much of a soft spot for the Trent girls, so that didn't work. So she like decides to save face. So she turns on the waterworks and like makes a scene about how she hates snakes and is afraid of them, and that's why was being a little rude, and that's why she didn't come to James's party because of the damped and worm stuff. And then James is like, but why are you playing snakes and ladders if you're so afraid of snakes? And she's like, it's a compulsion. I can't help myself. And then she like grabs the board game and throws it in the fire. Then she says Rosebud, which is clearly a reference to Citizen Kane, but doesn't really make a ton of sense here.
Yeah, that was like a really weird, like one-off thing. Like, I wonder if they like wrote something else in there and was like, we'll cut it.
Yeah, I don't even know, because it's not like it's a deep cinephile reference. Like, everyone knows the Rosebud quote from Citizen Kane. I mean, I guess in the 80s, it wasn't like movies were as regularly available to like buy and stream as they are now. But it is kind of a funny idea, though, that it's like she makes a Rosebud quip. But then it seems like James doesn't get the joke. But he does suddenly get a kiss from Lady Marsh. And I put in my notes, he's stepping out on Eve? Shame. But luckily, James doesn't get the Kevin treatment. James goes home. He talks to, talks to Mary on the phone, who's explaining that Eve was given a sedative by the doctor. And James says, I'll come check in on her in the morning. So it seems like he's very close to these girls because, immediately called on the phone to see how she was. And then James is like watching some silent film on TV that shows like a caterpillar that is like moving towards somebody it's a silent movie, but the person is clearly playing an instrument of some kind. And it like lures the caterpillar into a cocoon where then it emerges as a butterfly. And it's one of those instances where this movie kind of like mixes up worms and snakes in a way that I feel like is deliberate, but is also like misleading, because we've already established it's not worm. It's like serpent. It's like old school worm, but then also like they bring up multiple times various worm facts. It's like, like when you cut a worm in half and the two sides survive. It's like, yeah, but not a snake, dude. So whatever. There's no time to worry about that. Because we get a very long dream sequence. So this is, okay, let's try to explain this in an audio medium.
Good luck.
In a way that makes sense. So James turns off the TV and it pans to a painting of the slaying of the Dampton worm on his wall. So it's basically the knight fighting the worm in front of the cave we saw earlier with a huge cavern in the side of it, with that stone rick cavern. So James tries to go to sleep looking up at the painting, but then he like is looking at the painting, and then suddenly the knight and the worm are gone, and suddenly he's up in his outfit walking into the cavern. But then once he walks into the cavern, there's suddenly a jet plane sitting there, which he boards, and he walks past a flight attendant that is Lady Marsh. And then he sits in a chair as a version of Eve, also dressed as a flight attendant, brings him a newspaper. And the newspaper has, this is so much less effective than just watching it, but it's all we can do. There's like a crossword, and he starts to like draw on the crossword, and it's like he's clearly going to draw a serpent. Meanwhile, Mary, also a flight attendant, is like seemingly going through like emergency procedures, but you can't hear her. There's like no audio. It's all like just music and tones and stuff. Suddenly, flight attendant Lady Marsh brings a beverage cart by, and gives a drink to an older woman who we will later recognize as the Trent's mother. So she's strapped in a chair across from James. Then Lady Marsh moves on to a man who's also strapped down, we can presume is the Trent father. Once James finishes with his snake drawing, Lady Marsh goes to pour him a drink and approaches him with it, like seductively. We would recognize the drink as being venom, her venom that she has. So that's what she's been serving to the Trent parents, and it's coming to give it to James too. But what is it? Oh, and he's now also strapped down, as Lady Marsh is trying to force him to drink it. Eve shows up and stops Lady Marsh. But then Lady Marsh, the two of them go to the ground and they're like kind of wrestling one another, fighting. It's clearly supposed to be like a male gaze kind of thing, because there's like a sort of phallic reference with the pen that James was holding there as he watches them fight. And then for some reason it cuts to Mary continuing to do her instructions. Like, I guess it's very much dream logic here. Then suddenly the Trent father, gets up and walks towards the front of the plane, past where one of the women has her leg out and is waving her leg. And we don't know who it is. We just see the leg. So it's waving, towards James. James turns and sees at the other side of the plane another leg, but that one has a glass on the ground with the venom in it. So that's how we're like, oh, that one must be Lady Marsh. Then he turns to the other leg and sees the hand on the wall, and the hand has the crucifix ring that we will later learn is the ring that Eve always wears. So that's how he's able to tell one is Lady Marsh, one is Eve. And then he chooses to go the direction of Eve and walks past there to the front of the plane. And then suddenly he's inside the cavern. And then there he finds the watch on the ground in the cavern, just as there's a clatter and he's awakened by Peters bringing his breakfast stuff in there. So we're back, and then he looks and the painting's back to normal. Dream sequence is over. But there you go. Basically, the point of it is... It
was a cool scene.
It was really cool, and it's an interesting way to explain that he was, in fact, very tempted by Lady Marsh, but he did have a feeling there's something off about her and opted to go towards Eve, which brought him into the cavern, into the watch, which leads him to believe that that's the right move. Like, it's a cool scene. I thought it was really a fun way to tell that, because there was no dialogue. It was all music. It was like completely absent of any actual talking. So how did I do with that?
No,
weird dream sequence?
Honestly, really well. I was a little worried.
Hey, thanks, man.
Yeah, you did it. I'm proud of you.
I needed that. Next up is Peter's the manservant giving James a newspaper. James notices that it has Stone Rick Cavern on it. The newspaper is a picture of, like, you see Angus, you see Mary, a couple other people, and it says that they've called off the search again. But then, James is like, oh, hey, the Stone Rick Cavern looks a lot like the mountain where the worm was slayed in this painting. And Peters is like, yeah, dude, it should, because they're the same place. And somehow James has lived his entire life as like the Lord to be, at least, of like Dampton, the whole Dampton thing, and he never knew this. It's like, yeah, that makes sense. That cavern is supposed to be the lair of the legendary worm. It's like, if you said the lair of the white worm, then we would have had a title drop, but we didn't quite. But again, like, how did James go his entire life not knowing that? Who knows? It's just the idle rich. They don't have to think about stuff like snake monsters living underground.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, jet setting.
Yeah, that's true. It is implied that he, like, leaves a lot. It probably delegates a lot of his authority. James, explains, hey, well, I haven't been to the cavern since I was a child. And then he asks Peters to draw him a bath, and Peters, like, kind of grimaces at the camera and then goes off to do it. I'm like, I'm sure this is because people know the actor and this is like one of his patented looks or something. I don't know. It felt like there was like a joke there that I wasn't getting. Do you agree, or am I reading too much into that scene?
None of us got the joke.
All right, well, fair enough. Smash cut to later. James, Angus, Mary, and Eve arrive at Stone Rick Cavern in a van. Or is it an SUV? It might be an SUV. Angus is already kind of grumpy. He's like, this is a waste of time. Why are we doing this? And James is like, look, it is possible that a long extinct creature could reside in the caverns. So like I said, James is like instantly on, there's a actual monster. It's just so funny how he's the first one to think it.
Like quickly. It's like
he almost no evidence to suggest that that's the case other than like an old mosaic and a weird like series of visions that Eve had.
Call it British hubris. He's like, I must slay.
Yeah, he's this
beast.
That'd be a funny take on it. It's like he just wants to live up to his name. And then Mary's like, well, that would have been hundreds of years ago. And James is like, well, in archaeological time, that's not much, which Angus is like reluctantly agrees. He's like, he's right. That's how archaeological time works. As they're consulting the map, James is like, wait, what about this place marked cave drawing? And Mary is like, it is a primitive cave drawing. It is not worth looking at. James is like, I want to see this thing. And then the girls are very uncomfortable by this. And Angus is like, I'll take you to it. So Mary and Eve stay behind and eat sandwiches and make a joke about how lovely place for a picnic, this cave. And we see why the women weren't keen to go into the cave drawing, because it's like stick figures of like what look like they might be supposed to be women, but they also have phallic extensions. James is loving it. He thinks it's hilarious.
Surely that won't come up again, right?
Oh no, there's never gonna be a time where this comes up. Angus is like, oh, this might be I believe this is some kind of fertility symbol, which I put in my notes does track with James's dream, since he did have like some moments of implied phallic incidents. But then, you know, James is just kind of making light of this. Back at the cave entrance, Angus is like, yeah, the symbols seem to portray a hermaphrodite. And James is like, well, that would prove how it's possible for a worm that exists for hundreds or thousands of years if it doesn't need to reproduce, if it contains all of the means to reproduce on its own. Then James is like, show me to the spot where the watch was found. And the girls and Angus are all like, that's fruitless. That's dumb. Like, we've been there 100 times. He's like, well, then let's go 101 times. And then, Angus seems to think that the watch was stashed there by someone who thought it wouldn't be found. But James is more keen to think that the watch was like eaten and then digested and then passed. And everyone else is pretty flabbergasted by his assertion. It's like, yeah, James is going deep into this like snake theory. He's like, was there any excrement nearby? And they're like, no, dude. But they do kind of explain that there was a, the watch was found in like a little spring that has a small opening that is only enough for like the watch to fit through, but it comes from underground, deeper underground. You know, at that point, you know, Mary offers to stay with James and take him to the location where the watch was. Eve is like, well, I'm going to go back to the bed and breakfast to prepare tea for the guests, because they're probably going to be salty about it. They talk a lot about how the guests get really annoyed, but they're also very neglectful of their guests, so I'm not that surprised. And then Angus is like, well,
no wonder they were orphaned.
Oh, jeez, man. Batman is not pleased with you. But yeah, so Angus and Mary are going to go with James to look at the watch, while Eve goes back to prepare tea for the guests. However, on the way through the forest, Eve is stopped by Lady Marsh in yet another sharp outfit. She's up there chilling in a tree.
Probably my favorite scene.
when she's just up in the tree, it's like, Eve,
she's just like, just
me.
in a tree.
Yeah, she's just sitting in a tree. Lady Marsh tells Eve that she climbed up the tree to help a kitten, but the kitten was able to get down and is now gone, and now she's stuck in the tree. And Eve is like seemingly somewhat hypnotized by Lady Marsh and opts to like help her down. And like, by the time Lady Marsh is down, Eve is basically completely hypnotized by her. And Lady Marsh is like, well, you should come back to Temple House to relax. And the hypnotized Eve agrees and then takes Lady Marsh by the hand and is led away. At her house, Lady Marsh is naked in a tanning bed, which I thought was kind of a fun thing because she's presumably reptilian and it is kind of chilly still. So because she's what's the word for it? Exothermic. She probably uses the tanning bed to give herself energy.
Like to warm herself up.
Yeah. So she tells Eve to disrobe, and while Eve is undressing, Lady Marsh goes on this long speech about asking if she believes in reincarnation, which again, Eve can't answer. She's hypnotized. And Lady Marsh is like, I do, even though I'm immortal. And I have seen a version of you long ago during the time of my lover, the Emperor Carusius. So basically implying, or not implying, even saying that she was in love with that rebel emperor from way back when. Then Lady Marsh, as Eve is still getting undressed, takes some time to mock nuns, mock the convent massacre, saying it was punishment for trying to build a convent over Dionen's sacred temple. She really doesn't like Christianity. She really hates it. You couldn't guess by the first, earlier when she spat on a crucifix.
She's consistent though.
No, yeah, she super does. Then she's Dionen, just like your what does she call him? It's impotent god. She calls the god really mean names. It's just like your false god, Dionen likes virgins, but it's so hard to come by virgins in this day and age. It's okay, he's starting a radio show, a talk radio show lady. But then she's she basically is Eve, I'm going to sacrifice you to Dionen. Then Lady Marsh at first stops Eve from getting undressed, and then uses some kind of weird phallic sharp tool that she has to presumably check her out. It's kind of implied, but she keeps this. The only reason I bring it up is because this phallic tool is going to come up later. It's a very important item to the plot. One might even call it Chekhov's phallic stone device.
There you go.
That rolls off the tongue. But Lady Marsh is all right, Eve, I want you to go call home, make up an excuse for why you're missing. And she's like, what will the excuse be? Oh, tell your sister you're having a hard time with everything that's going on. You're just going to head to London to clear your head. So Eve goes, calls Mary, starts to give her the lie that Lady Marsh gave her. But then suddenly Eve sees the crucifix ring on her finger. And that snaps her out enough that she starts to yell Dionen over and over again. And then that makes Lady Marsh go snake mode. She pops up, hisses, and shoots venom onto Eve's face. Straight up reptile special moves, Except instead of burning her face, it gives her another vision. In case the entire audience wasn't jonesing for more weird visions from the...
It's you're sitting there you know what? We need more visions.
Yeah, you know what this movie could use? More acid visions, please? So yeah, basically, this one is a really weird one. So there's a bunch of nuns that are impaled on stakes in a field, sort of. And there's the topless Lady Marsh, who has the phallic tool in her hand and is it's covered in blood, and she's licking it. And it's this is pretty messed up scene. Definitely not one to pause it on if you have family in the house. So yeah, there you go.
Solid advice.
Solid advice. FYI, don't do it. So yeah, then back in the real world, not the weird vision world, Lady Marsh hangs up the phone, but it was enough of a commotion that convinces Mary that something's up. James offers to call the station to confirm. Mary says that Eve wouldn't want them to make a fuss, and James is no, we got to do it. So Mary, do you think it's crazy or not? Don't make a fuss, but also yeah, we should definitely do it. So yeah, Mary, relays to the guys who are sitting there that her sister had said Dionen, and James is oh, that was the name that she had that Eve had said earlier during her spell that she had last time. And Angus, being the studious type who gives us exposition, is oh, Dionen was a pagan snake god. And then the two of them like kind of have a moment of like, James is like, well, why didn't you say anything about it before? And Angus is like, well, you only just mentioned it. And James is like, well, I just remembered it. It's like, okay, guys, don't play the blame game. Neither of you brought up Dionin until now. Like, why would you? Yeah, so basically,
I didn't understand the animosity there because they were both going for the same person.
No, I think it was just a little bit of tension between them because they always kind of bicker. Like, their relationship is really interesting because they kind of bicker with each other, but they also like, I don't know, watch out for each other. It's a very weird relationship dynamic between, Angus and James. Meanwhile, Mary, she's calling the station, has an awkward exchange with a guy named Roy, and she mistakenly calls him Ray. And we only get her end of the conversation, but it seems like he's being like, oh, yes, I love your bed and breakfast. I stayed there last spring. And like, she's clearly calling for a reason, dude. Like, read the room. But then she's like, runs out of the room to go check Eve's stuff. So Angus takes over the call. He hears from Roy that Mary isn't there and the train is just gone. But then, or not Mary, Eve isn't there. But the train is just gone. But then Mary gets there and sees that Eve hasn't taken any of her clothes or shown any signs of having come home, meaning she'd be there with just like the clothes on her back. And Angus is trying not to jump to any conclusions, but Mary is now convinced that Eve was abducted by somebody. But James, on the other hand, he's like all in on Dionin's snake god conspiracy. He's like, the found skull was definitely, he like goes into it. He's like, the found skull was definitely a serpent skull. The Romans would often take up local religions into their fold, meaning that the skull could have been a sacred object in the old temple, but it was stolen right out from under them. And Eve was having hallucinations of a snake god in her visions. So James is like, there must have been a conflict between Christianity and a pagan cult, and that's like the root of all this. And it's so funny how like James immediately like gets all the details right. Like, yes, the snake skull was stolen by somebody who worships this snake god who did steal Eve, and it all goes back to this old convent and the conflict between Christianity and paganism. It's like, man, James, like, you're just on top of this, buddy. But yeah, now, what is it? Thinking of all the snake stuff, including Ernie's snake bite from earlier, and the temple house having been the site of an old pagan temple, hence the name, and Lady Marsh playing snakes and ladders, James concludes that Lady Sylvia Marsh is the one who took Eve. He's 100% correct. And it's so funny how he jumps to that conclusion. Sorry, I kind of went through that a little bit awkwardly, but it's just funny how he put all the pieces together immediately.
It's like, yes, as my grandfather written.
It's like, okay, so we have the site of the convent. You have a Roman temple or Roman holy site below it with the snake skull. You have somebody who was kidnapped who had visions of a snake god. You have a conflict between, Christianity and paganism. You have the temple house, which is the site of an old temple. You had Ernie who got bit by a snake outside a temple house. You have Lady Sylvia Marsh playing snakes and ladders. The only solution is she's a snake priestess who has kidnapped Eve. Like, he went through the details so fast. It's like whenever you play one of those like detective games and you just like draw the lines between each other and it suddenly like lights up and you've solved the puzzle.
He's like Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, he's like the Sherlock Holmes, those games for Frogwares, yeah. But yeah, back at James's house, he's already concocted a scheme but hasn't told us it at all. So we're along for the ride here. He's going through some of his father's old records and he's asking Peters if there's any that had like snake charmer sounding music. James finds one and plays it, which seems to tickle Peters' fancy. It's another one of those bits. It's like, I guess this actor is like famous enough that he can do these funny bits and they're supposed to be something that signals to the audience that he matters. I don't know. And then Peters is like, oh, I believe that they would have called this a belly dancer song or something like that. Like, just like a belly dancer that your father encountered in Turkey. And then Peters is like, try the B-side, sir, which is, he says, is snake charmer music that James's father said could charm the Dampton worm from its hole. It's like, oh, that's a convenient record to still have and a convenient anecdote to remember.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. So then like James tells Peters that he has to head out because he's expecting company. You might say to yourself, what? What is he talking about? Then we reveal that James has put speakers on the roof of the house to blast the music out into the open air. Now, what will that do? Oh, that's right. The music lures Lady Sylvia Marsh And somehow he just knew that would work. So,
the more we talk about this, the more that this sounds like a Looney Tunes episode.
I know. Well, that's what I mean. It started out so like, I don't know, grounded. And then it's suddenly like, oh, wait, I have all of the schemes ready to like attract the snake lady. So yeah, James is now blasting the snake charmer music out into the open air. Back at Lady Sylvia's house, this is kind of a cool scene. She like emerges from like a basket that she was apparently sitting in, like a cobra kind of. And
yeah, what the fuck?
Yeah, and that outfit's pretty sharp. She has like black leather and her hair is like matted down and stuff. It's a very cool, very cool outfit. And she like just starts dancing out the door, being lured by the music. And she doesn't even notice as she walks past Angus and Mary because she's just like so enraptured by the music that she doesn't notice them. And as they walk in, Angus is like, oh, this is a surprising thing. It's a bust of Marcus Carusius. And he's like, and then Mary's like, well, yeah, like a lot of people have busts in their house. He's like, no one has busts of this guy. And then he like tells her about how like he would have definitely known about the pagan religion. He's like, yeah, duh, dude, we already know that. And then also in the next room, they find like a bust of a mongoose getting killed by a snake. And then he like explains, the mongoose, the ancient enemy of the snake. And then in the next room, they find someone is in the room watching a video on TV. The video is like, like a burlesque dancer woman who's like dancing with like a large like boa snake, like one of those like big snakes that I can't tell if it's a boa or a python. It's one of those. And then the person watching it though is Mary's mother. So Mary goes and is like, Mom, it's you. I'm so happy to see you. I hope you don't bite me with a snake face. Nope. She goes snake mode and bites Mary on the throat immediately. Angus grabs a fiery log and chases the mom away just as Mary starts to have her own hallucinations. And this time it's her being murdered by what looks like cultists of Dionin. They're like dressed in blue and they are using those weird like stone idols to stab through her midriff. We don't know where they're located on the cultists yet. We will find out how they use it. But yeah, it's her being murdered by the cultists. So yeah, getting an idea for like the ritual of the sacrifice and stuff like that. But fortunately, the hallucinations stop because Angus works quickly to suck the venom out and spit it into a glass. And we see the venom looking like the venom we saw earlier and everything, like very bright green venom. I guess I never described it. It's very bright green. Like the first time the first time she spit it onto the crucifix, the first time we saw it on the plane in a glass. So like it's very distinct. That's how you know what it is. Unlike real venom, which is just kind of clear, I think. So Angus then goes to call James to tell him what happened. But it seems like Peters answers the phone as like deliberately being obtuse to Angus. But like it's really weird how, because at this point I'm like, is Peters in on it? Like, why is he like being so rude to Angus?
He did seem like that.
But he does end up giving James the lesson, gives James the message that, hey, she's on the way. And but for some reason, Peters like doesn't tell James about the attack that happened. So it's kind of weird. But then James is like, hey, Peters like, I locked the front door. And then James is like, Peters, go unlock the front door. We're luring this lady here, dude. Like, you talked about this. He's like, also have the chambermaids lock themselves in their room. And Peters is like, yes, I shall unlock the front door and lock the maids up. Then he walks away. And that's the last time we have to wonder if this guy is supposed to be famous because he's about to die. So we don't have to worry about it anymore. But yeah, so not Angus. Right as James picks up the phone to like call the police to inform them that there's an urgent issue out here at the Dampton house. Too bad, power goes out, and he was using a cordless phone, so it isn't like those old timey phones that would still work when the power is out. Before now, when all phones are digital or cell phones, stops the music, and then we hear Peters scream from elsewhere. But then out of the darkness, there's a jump attack, but it's not Lady Marsh. It's Snake Trent mom. It's her. What is it? Dorothy Trent, I think is her name. They never really say her name, so I didn't really remark
she covered some ground.
No, yeah, that's what I mean. She like booked it from the house and like beat Lady Sylvia there. I have to assume that Lady Sylvia is like trying to put up resistance to it. So that's why she probably was trying to like not get there as fast as possible. But anyways, Trent Mom's jumping through the air towards James, who like in one turn reaches out, grabs like some huge long sword, does a spin move, and cuts the mom in half in midair. Straight up, just like bisected, man. Both sides wriggle on the ground and hiss. And James is like, well, that's rough. And then he goes out to the foyer and sees Peters is dead. I mean, he has a clear like snake bite wound with like the green venom on his throat. Suddenly the power is back on and the phone rings and it's Angus checking on James. We only get James's side of the conversation, but James is like, yeah, I was attacked, but it wasn't by who we expected. But he's like, oh wait, yeah, you're right. Like that is who it was. And then we cut to Angus's side. Angus is like, yeah, there might be some kind of vampirism associated with the snake thing. If you're wondering yourself, like, how does that work? How does like the snake bite make people into vampiric thralls? They're never going to explain it. There's not enough time in the day to explain how this snake stuff works.
Yeah, because I don't think it's a venom, because if it was the venom, but maybe, like, I don't want to spoil the ending, but maybe that's how one of them got infected.
It's sort of hard to tell because it does seem like, I don't know, the venom immobilizes them, but then, like, if she hadn't sacrificed Kevin or hadn't murdered Kevin, would he have become a thrall then? And then, like, there's other people who are in the thrall. I don't know. It's very hard to explain.
Mary
like,
got bit.
Well, Mary got bit, but remember, Angus sucked the venom out, so that saved her. I don't know. It's kind of, it's, yeah, like I said, it's vague the way the rules work. We don't have time to wonder about that because James, like, we're back to James's side of the conversation. He's like, the music was probably stopped by the power outage. I'll go and turn it back on. However, when he gets the record player, like, the record is gone. It's been taken away. And then it's kind of funny from James's side of the conversation because we don't know what Angus is telling him, but James is like, stop asking me if I'm going to be all right. Of course I'm going to be all right. Yeah. It's like Angus is just like deeply concerned for James right now. But then, of course, right as he hangs up the phone, we get a cut to him being grabbed on the leg by the top half of Snake Mom. So yeah, even though she's cut in half, her two halves are still operating. And then it cuts away from him. And it doesn't cut back to him for a really long time to make us think that maybe he was just killed. He wasn't. I don't know why it did that. But yeah, Angus goes into Mary's room and explains to her that her mother is now at rest, which of course makes Mary cry because Snake Mom is dead. Of course, she's not at rest. She's still trying to grab it. Her top half is still ambulatory. But yeah, the next morning, Mary's sitting in front of the mirror inspecting her snake bite wounds on her throat when Ernie arrives in the police car and is like honking the horn to get her to come out, which is really weird. He had no problem entering the house before, but maybe he's being sus for a reason, Shane. Maybe he's being sus for a reason.
Maybe he is. Maybe he isn't.
Maybe he was born with it.
Maybe he's Maybelline.
But yeah. So essentially, Ernie is explaining to Mary that like, you got to come with me and identify the body of your mother. And Mary's like, well, why? Like, it's a small town. You've known my mother for years. And he's like, oh, it's got to be by the book. We got to do it at the police station by a next of kin or whatever. And Mary wants to wait for Angus because he's like out. And Ernie's like, oh, come on. It won't be long. We have to go to the station. And again, like he's being really sus. And the camera definitely lingers on Ernie for a really long time as he's just like staring straight ahead. It's like, oh, he's definitely snaked up.
Wow.
What? Well, Shane. He's staring, he's facing forward. How's that? You ought to be. But yeah, as they're driving the police car, Ernie's being really awkward, complaining about how he had to go out to Dampton Hall last night expecting to find a burglary, but instead finding a couple of corpses. And he explains about Peter's neck was broken and that Snake Mom was fatally wounded, but that James isn't harmed. And Mary's like, I need to do a missing persons report for Eve. But then Mary notices they're not heading in the direction of the police station. And Ernie's like, oh, well, we have to go to Temple House to discuss the allegations that James has levied against Lady Marsh. It's like, why would he bring her to that? But then, once he gets out of the car, he's like, oh, come on out of the car. Why don't you come and hang out with me? Mary notices that Ernie has a bite on his arm, like on his hand. It's like he's bandaged up. And she's like, oh no. She tries to run, but then the gates to the Temple House property close before she can escape. So she runs down into like some kind of like passageway underground, which seems like a not safe place to go. And of course she gets to a gate which has a snake on it, and she's too scared to move past the snake. But then she turns around and Ernie is behind her. He's also snaked up now. He's got the snake fangs. He's got the snake eyes. You know, he's snaked up, and he's actually about to get to her when suddenly there's the sound of bagpipes being played, which lures the snake Ernie away.
Best scene ever.
Yes, and it is it in fact Angus in full Scottish kilt and like attire? Yes.
Yeah, at some point he changed.
Yes, he leaned into this Scottishness and went full like kilt and like Highlander attire, and is just walking around with bagpipes. Totally works. Snake Ernie is trying to follow Angus, which gives Mary the chance to escape, but instead of escaping, she opens the gate with the snake that she was afraid of earlier and goes further into the underground. Yeah, that's going to go well for her, let me tell you. We get a long scene of like Ernie like chasing after Angus, like drawn by the bagpipe music. And Angus is like jumping around, dodging him like as fast as he can while holding like, you know, a whole bagpipe thing. And he like is running around like a kind of like sculpture that's out front. Keep an eye on that sculpture. It's very sharp and it's going to become important. Finally, Angus runs out of breath from the running and also the playing the bagpipes. And he like fights with Ernie, but pushes him back onto the statue, at which point Ernie's impaled on the statue and he's dead. So there you go. Snake Ernie, he's gone. Snake Ernie, we barely knew you. I guess Snake Ernie had the yearny for the wormy. But yeah, so then we get a scene of just Angus just walking around Temple House playing bagpipes, just walking around the halls. It's very funny. Presumably an attempt to lure out any additional snake people, because who knows how many there are at this point. Finally, it seems like Angus gets like kind of tired of playing the bagpipes, and he stops like at the bottom of the stairs in like some kind of like great room or something. It's kind of hard to tell what it is. By the another Carausius bust. Apparently, Lady Sylvia Marsh has a lot of busts of her ex-lover. He takes out something which we'll later learn from him is an anti-venom, and he injects it into something that he has in his hand, and it turns out that it's a mongoose. It's like, where did Angus get a mongoose? He releases the mongoose out, and it runs into a room which has like a curtain, and it seems like the curtain's moving, so it's like there's like a breeze in there. Then he hears a screech as the mongoose is probably fighting something. So then Angus, he goes to see what happened. Suddenly, boom, he's ambushed by Lady Marsh. She's now fully like, is it blue skin, or does she have blue body paint? I can't tell if it's supposed to be her skin or her body paint. I
honestly don't know.
Either way, she's blue, dubba dee dubba die. She's got snake face, and then it's like she pops out and what is it? Gives Angus a bite on his shin or on his thigh, and then she reveals that she had earplugs in her ear to stop herself from succumbing to the music. Oh no, she outsmarted him. So then she like grabs the now unconscious, because of the paralytic, Angus, and drags him down into the sacrificial chamber. So down in the chamber, and I should mention the blue is what we saw earlier in Mary's one vision, where she was being like attacked by like the stone idol, and like there was like 3 Lady Marsh type cultists, but that's like the gear they had on the blue. But yeah, so we see that in the sacrificial chamber, Mary is tied up on the wall. Eve is like in her undergarments, and she's like tied up from above, but like up on like this like altar type thing that's over like a large pit. Let me tell you, Shane, there might be a white worm in that there lair. Lady Marsh approaches the stone altar and reverentially places the skull from earlier in front of the hole. Again, the lair of the white worm hole in the ground there. But no time for exciting human sacrifice stuff, Shane. We got to go back to Stone Ridge Cavern and see what James has been up to. James is there with a bunch of workmen who are going to, I guess, force gas into a fissure in order to smoke out the white worm.
Was it the watch fissure?
Yes, it's the fissure where the watch came through. And it's so funny because he even tells the workmen why they're there. It's like, oh yeah, there's a carnivorous subterranean creature here, and we're gonna force gas out to smoke it out. And then I guess these guys like, whatever, money's money. They just are on board.
Like, all right, another party.
Yeah, it's like, oh, whatever. Yeah, we're gonna have another worm party. They can they can actually hear him talking to his men from the sacrificial chamber where Angus, Eve, Mary, and Lady Marsh are. Like, you can actually hear the workmen talking. And I think that at that point, James is like, all right, no more talking, guys. Focus on the task at hand or whatever. I guess to not tip their hand about what they're up to. But yeah, now Lady Marsh is walking around. She's got some flowers. She's doing some kind of ritual, talking about how great her god Dionin is, how he brought knowledge and stuff until he's forced underground by the false god. We learn more about Dionin, how he's apparently chilling in Eden, but God was mean to him. And then, now Dionin, he comes from darkness and he is the darkness and he's immortal. It's like, okay, I feel like you're just saying stuff now. Just a bunch of generic, like, cultic nonsense. But then we get a significant freak out from everyone who's awake right now when Lady Marsh has that relic from earlier, but now it's like placed in a phallic position on her person. Apparently, so she's about to like use it on Eve, which again, like, wouldn't that mean that she would die and then Dionin wouldn't get his live meal? I don't know, whatever. But she's about to like use the stone device, phallus device on Eve when suddenly the white worm starts screaming. So apparently the gassing that's happening that James is working on worked. Like the worm is getting upset. It's like trying to crawl further and further out. Lady Marsh can't do her full ceremony. She says something like, I guess we have to cut the ceremony short and feed this lady to a worm. So instead she
which means it didn't matter and didn't have to happen.
Yeah, which means like, what is that, just for funsies? Like, but yeah, so basically, Lady Marsh now like has the tied up Eve fastened to a rope and then like pushes her out over the hole. So she's like hanging above the hole where the worm is. And we see the worm now a few times. It's just like a big old white snake, basically, just roaring and carrying on. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier, what it looks like. It's just a white worm. It's a white snake. It's here it goes again on its own, just a white snake.
Crawling down the only hole it ever known.
Yeah. It's just like a big snake puppet. It's good looking. It's not bad. It doesn't get a lot of screen time, so no need to harp on it too much.
It was born to crawl alone.
It was, well, in a lot of ways. But yeah. So Lady Marsh now grabs a sacrificial knife and is working on cutting the ropes above Eve so that she will fall down into Dionin's hole and get ate. Luckily, Angus comes to and he like just pushes Lady Marsh, but she's not one to let herself just fall down a hole. She grabs onto Eve's feet and is hanging by Eve's feet, and her knife, she'd almost finished cutting the rope. So the rope is like down to like one thread of rope left holding these two. And so Angus is like, well, I gotta get Lady Marsh to let go of her. I guess the only way to do it is to start cutting off Lady Marsh's hands at the wrist. And he just saws through each of her hands. And she does very little to defend herself.
That makes sense.
Yeah. It causes, Lady Marsh to fall. And I guess the Dionin doesn't have a lot of like concern for his worshippers because he eats her. He just eats her up. Then, Angus then catches Eve right as her rope snaps and manages to secure her. He then frees Mary and sends the girls to run away. And then he turns around and takes out a hand grenade, which he also had. So he like walks over to the hole. He takes the time to give one holy shit as he looks down and finally actually, I guess, takes a look at the worm. He's just like, oh, holy shit. Then he like pulls the pin and tosses the grenade, which explodes and then kills Dionin and also like lights up the lair and like it starts burning. Angus then takes out the anti-venom, gives Eve an injection just in case. She had been bit at some point by Lady Marsh off screen. Angus then goes to phone an ambulance for Eve. Back at Stone Ridge Cavern, James is just having a drink from a thermos with one of his workers, and they're looking out and they can see smoke billowing up from like the valley beyond. And James is like, I wonder, asks where that is. And the worker says it's probably in the grove somewhere. And James is like, then it could be Temple House. And the worker's like, yeah, probably. So he knows that he's probably succeeded in their plan or whatever. Back at the farmhouse, Angus is, back with his, sitting there with his bagpipes just as James arrives in his vehicle. James makes a crack about how Angus must have been at the Highland Games. But yeah, James is like, maybe I'll go back tomorrow with dynamite. But Angus said that he saved him the trouble, with the grenade. And James said he wanted to do a good deed like Sir John, his old ancestor. And Angus is like, hey, you smoked the worm out so we could take it out. So you did more than enough. Oh, these guys are bonding. They share a drink from Angus's flask. And James explains how he knew about the underground cavern because there must have been a connection between Temple House and Stone Ridge Cavern. And then there was a cave-in that probably trapped the worm underground, which is why it couldn't emerge. And also, they could save budget money on having an actual worm running around. It could just stay in a hole. Angus then explains that Lady Marsh is dead, fed to the worm. So, and her last acolyte, Ernie, is also dead. James is kind of bummed out about Ernie, So Angus says that Ernie had lured Mary by saying that James was in the police station. And James is like, no, I left before the cops even showed up. Like, I didn't want to have to deal with the corpses in my house. Like, okay, man, that's fine. And then Angus tells him that the girls are in the hospital. And James is concerned, but Angus is like, it's just a precaution in case of shock or whatever. They hear a phone ringing, so Angus goes inside to answer it in case it's the girls phoning them. But it turns out it is a nurse, none other than Nurse Gladwell. She's like, hey, terrible news. We made a silly mistake at the hospital. The antivenom we gave you wasn't antivenom at all. It was arthritis medicine, and it won't help with snake bites even a little bit. So it turns out the antivenom doesn't work, and Angus has been bitten. So yeah, horrified Angus looks at himself in the mirror, and we get a musical sting, I guess suggesting that this isn't over. But then he's jarred away by James honking the horn outside. So Angus goes and joins James in the car. He's doing a very sinister forward look, suggesting that he is now evil. James is like, I'm famished. Let's stop for a bite. And Angus is like, sure, why not? When suddenly, while shifting, James bumps into Angus's kilt, which reveals the snake bite on his thigh. And then he looks at it and then does a double take and looks at it again, like James does. He looks and then does a double take. Then he realizes, as Angus then turns to look at him and smiles. And then boom, end of movie, and a reprise of the folk song from the party earlier. And then that's it. That's movie over. It ends on a cliffhanger. What's that?
So two things here. So, I think I guess so. He was infected, so that's why the paralysis didn't work.
I don't really know how the paralysis works, actually.
Okay. And then thing two, if I could retcon the ending to this, when he goes, "Oh, take a bite to eat," and he bumps his kilt and moves it, and it shows his thigh, and then Angus looks over at his teeth, and then James would be like, "Oh, you too," and then has teeth too.
Oh, like if both of them had snake teeth.
That'd have been funny.
Hey, look at us. We're both snake guys now.
It's like that lizard people meme where it's like, oh, now's the time. And then everyone reveal yourselves. And then everyone's a lizard person. And they're like, wait, what?
No, that's the one thing about it though, is how does this work? So I thought that the snake people were thralls of Lady Sylvia. So if she's dead, who's in charge of the snake people now? Is he just an animal, like a monster?
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
Just a rogue snake dude.
Rogue snake dude. Well,
man, I'm gonna have to imagine this next part's gonna be a little difficult.
Are you talking about what we do next on the Dark Side Drive-In?
Yeah, which is
we do the
McMurder of the movie.
Wubble wubble. So yeah, McMurder the movie. So usually we do a thing where the kill has to be the baddies killing a regular person, right?
Sure.
But we've made exceptions about this before, and I think I might have to make an exception again.
Okay.
Do you want me to tell you what I want to do?
Is it Ernie?
Oh no, I do like the Ernie death. That's a good one. But no, I was actually going to do where Hugh Grant straight up slices those girl's snake mom in half.
Oh, that was good.
Like how she jumps out, and before she has so much hang time that he has time to grab a sword and do a spin maneuver and cut her in half.
That's solid.
Yeah, and that sword was huge. But you want to do Ernie though? You want to do Ernie getting?
No, I think the Clefton and Twain, Clefton Clemens.
Clefton Clemens.
I Snake Mom is good. I like it because then she comes back and grabs his ankle.
Yeah, and it's like, is it over? But then it's like later on, it's like, no, yeah, she was dead. It's just took her a little while. But no, the thing about the Ernie one that I like is I do enjoy the whole lead up to it, like luring him with bagpipe music and then finally just being tired of playing bagpipes and then having to fight him. But it's just like that scene of like cutting a snake lady in half. It was like hilarious.
If we're like following our own rules though, it has to be that kid, Chris Pratt.
Kevin. Yeah, it has to be Kevin getting bit. And then she's like, I'm being bothered. I'm going to drown you instead. Like, geez, lady.
Right.
Yeah, that kid.
I'm okay with Snake Mom.
Yeah, I was going to say that kid, poor Kevin, never got any justice for his murder. But, yeah, because like I also like the Lady Sylvia Marsh death just because of like Angus having to cut her hands off at the wrist so she could fall down and get eaten by her own god.
Sure did.
But no, for me it's definitely Snake Mom getting cut in half.
I'm with you on that one.
All right, well you heard it here first, folks. We broke our own rules kind of again. I mean, we really don't have rules. We can do it whatever we want. This is our podcast.
Yeah, we can cry if we want to.
Yeah. But anyways, we're not going to cry. We're going to move on to the next section, which is
the judgment categories.
Hey, listeners who do this, as you know, judgment categories are where we give a letter grade to 5 categories for the movie. There is story, which includes writing, acting, effects, music, which can include sound, and then cult factor. Cult factor being that little X factor that makes these movies so special. So, for story, do you want to start or do you want me to start?
I think you should take it.
It's I think I like it better than I originally did. It's very talky. There's a lot of scenes of just people just sitting around talking to each other, which can be a little bit meh. But the idea being that 2 recently orphaned girls who run a bed and breakfast team up with an archaeologist and the local lord to fight a snake priestess who can turn people into vampire snake monsters is a fun concept. Oh, by the way, she also has this actual giant snake god underground beneath her like house. So
and the kilt, bagpipe.
Well, yes, yeah. The archaeologist is also Scottish, and he plays bagpipes. Like so much of the movie, like hinges on ridiculous leaps in logic and coincidences to the point where it's like, I don't know if I can buy into this. But then also like, I feel like part of it is that Lady Sylvia Marsh, like despite being an immortal snake lady, is getting real sloppy about her work. Like, you can't keep abducting locals in your small town in like Derbyshire or wherever they are and expect people not to get suspicious of the lady who only shows up every spring whenever people start going missing. Like, they were going to figure it out eventually. Even like Mr. Magoo could have seen that one. So I don't know. I think that it's a really fun story. I think that I don't know if this is the place to talk about it, but like the way that it tells stories visually a number of times, I think is really interesting. It made it hard to talk about, but I thought that it made it really interesting. So I don't know. I just think because so much hinges on coincidence, and so much of it is talky, I might have to give it a B, but I do really appreciate like Ken Russell's like distinctive visual style and like very stylistic, like.
Yeah, I think a B is fair because, not to rehash the points you made, but like, it's like far-fetched enough that it like kind of makes sense, but at the same time, like they did take some pretty solid liberties. And then I think it kind of fell a little flat where they could have built some more backstory with Angus and James. So yeah, I think B is fair.
Cool. Well, then let's move on to acting. Do you want to take the lead on this one?
Yeah. We're usually pretty hard on acting. And I don't know if it was just because they're British and it was kind of difficult to understand them, but I didn't feel like anyone had a particularly poor showing. In fact, like I thought that a lot of like for British television, like if you watch a lot of British shows and stuff, this was actually pretty good. I'd be inclined to go A, just because I feel like there's a lot of strong performances throughout the movie. It could be because I've seen it 6 times. So
you did watch this movie a lot of times.
Yeah, every time we were going to record, I rewatched it. So yeah, it was. But I don't know if you agree with me on the A, but like I honestly, like Lady Donahoe. I keep saying Donahue. It's Donahoe.
Amanda Donahoe. Yeah.
Yeah, was just like knockout.
She really owned every scene she was in. She was the core of the movie, which is very interesting to have like the top billed person and like probably the most interesting character be the villain. It was very fun. It was a very scenery chewing role. Yes.
And then like the irony that she like is so self-aware of, and like just the jokes. Like the snakes and ladders and all the other stuff. Like, I don't know.
That's what I mean. That's like a part of like her maybe flying a little too close to the sun. It's like, lady, you're laying it on a little thick. But yeah, no, it was very funny. And like her changing outfits basically between every scene into something else. Like, yeah, she like, and it was interesting that she just seemed like, hey, I'm going to like, Ken Russell has a weird idea for a way you should dress or act in the scene. And she's like, yeah, I'll do it. Why not? Like she seemed like she was down for the kind of movie he was making. Which is really important in like a central villainous character that's going to own the movie. I will say though that I was surprised by how much I liked Hugh Grant's character as an actor that I don't really care for that much. I did like Dungeons and Dragons, obviously. He was great in that movie. But like I've never been that big of a fan of his, but I thought he was like really charming and interesting, and he kind of like played off the being sort of aloof, but not being able to help himself and caring for like those girls and wanting to like make sure they're okay. And I thought that his interplay between James, Hugh Grant's character, James, and then Angus, Peter Capaldi's character, I thought that was really like bordering on like adversarial sometimes, but then like also like kind of teaming up, and then also kind of like concerned for one another and like concerned for like the girls and stuff. It was just like I don't know if it wasn't that it was consistent, because it had ebbs and flows, but it was never boring. Like it was always interesting to see like, is this going to be one where they're going to make fun of each other? Is this going to be one where Angus is going to be a grump and James is going to be a goof? Like what's the conversation going to be like here?
Yeah, and it was all believable too. Like it wasn't like forced.
Yeah. So I'm inclined to go A, honestly.
Cool.
Like even down to like the supporting cast with like Ernie, giving a little love to Paul Brook. Like, hey, he was in there. Yeah. He was doing it. So All right, A for acting. Next up is effects.
Man, I feel like there wasn't a ton here, but I loved the snake fangs. Like, come on, how cool was that?
Yeah, the snake fang moments were pretty cool. And the snake
It was
eyes
like
thing
it was
they
like
did.
campy. Yeah, it was so cool.
Oh yeah, it was very
acid spit.
silly. Yeah.
Yeah, but it like it worked, right?
Yeah, and the
Like, I don't know.
stylistic elements, like how they portrayed the acid, was like very much a part of this, I feel like.
Yeah, and this isn't like a gore movie, right? So this isn't gonna do like crazy kills or anything like that. So
No, other
I don't
than
know.
a lady getting cut in
The
half.
sword,
You know,
yeah,
the sword.
that was pretty cool.
And the snake monster was fine. We only get a couple glimpses of
Yeah.
it once during one of the weird like vision sequences where it's like on the crucifix, and then you get like it in the hole. And I will admit I was a little underwhelmed by it in the hole. I was kind of hoping for a little bit more, as very like Sarlacc pit vibes. Like I was really hoping it could be more active, and it was very much just like, yo, I'm down here, can you hear me? I'm yelling, I'm getting gassed out.
You know what's
I'm
kind of
pissed."
crazy?
What's that?
Like how similar this was to the Beetlejuice worm.
I could see that. I mean, it wasn't striped; it was just white. But yeah.
No, but I mean like how how it was like moving and all that stuff. Like
Yeah, I could see that. It was yeah, it was good. I think that probably for me the bigger part of effects was actually like those vision sequences, because they were very
those were
clearly
wild.
they were very clearly removed from reality, and there's so many effects to how they were shot and how they were like framed and everything, and like they would put forward like this idea of what they want to get across. I think that kind of falls in the realm of effects. Honestly, the only thing that's holding me back from wanting to give it a high grade is the actual snake itself. Like Dionin, I was so underwhelmed by him, and I remain underwhelmed on subsequent viewings. So I probably want to say B, but I can be convinced otherwise.
No, I think B is fair because, we can't like make exceptions. Like, you know what I mean? I feel like we're making a lot of excuses. Like, they could have done more with that. And the other thing, like, they chose to make it a giant worm. Like, they could have done other things. Like, I don't know. I feel like they had a lot of options, and they chose a okay one.
They chose poorly.
Even if they would have had like a giant cave and it just would have been at the mouth of the cave and you just would have saw its head come out, kind of like Dune, like how just you see the tip of the worm. I think they could have done so much better, but yeah, I'm okay with B. I think B is fair because there's a lot of other really good stuff. I think the worm brings it down a bit.
Yeah, that's just my opinion on it. All right, cool. B for effects. Next up is music and sound design stuff. I usually let you take the lead on music, but can I say something first this time on music?
No, go for it. Yeah, go for it.
I loved those loud stings that would happen. Like the really loud, like what was that, organ music stings would happen like during the visions and during like random scenes and stuff like that. It was so cool. It like really told a story. Like I was just so surprised by how much it stood out to me every time it would happen. And especially during those vision sequences, because it helped to like really drive home the idea that like this is weird. Like,
right. Yeah, it was like it had a really good like weird 70s kind of vibe to it. Not the music itself, just the styling of like when they use stings, like how they used them. The bagpipes, awesome.
yeah.
The record player was funny. Like that was cool.
Oh yeah, like even the role between like diegetic and non-diegetic music, like when because it was so important that there's like actually diegetic segments of music like the characters were in, and they did a great job, I think, of both mixing it so it sounded different. It didn't sound like it was just like a track overlaid,
right?
And then also when it was time for like the non-diegetic stuff with like those visions and those huge stings, it would just like really pop. It was great in my opinion.
Yeah, I think I'd go A. I liked it.
I kind of want to go A too. I really did. I really dig it. I think that it really, I don't know, it really added a lot. Because like that's the other thing is like one of the times where we're like, we'll give it an okay grade because it's not like it was jarring or anything. But this is like the opposite. This is like it was like jarring, but in like a way that enhanced the movie. Like it was very interesting.
Yes.
All right, we're going A for music, and then finally is cult factor. The little X factor that makes these movies so special. Now, I don't know how you feel about this. I don't think I've really talked to you about
Sure.
really how you were vibing with this one. I've gone on a record that it was like a weird random find that I found on Tubi, and it kept getting removed, and I kept being sad about it. And I feel like I might have been making it out to be more than it is. So I'm kind of curious about where you land on this.
So the first time I watched it, I was like kind of like tired, and it just wasn't my jam. And I'm like, oh, this was kind of not a slog, but I'm like, okay, it's British, right? It's very British. The subsequent times I watched it, I kept liking it more. And I'll be honest with you, the last time I watched it, I'm like, I don't know. I just like must have not, I don't know. I was in a wrong kind of headspace. I kind of really like this movie. And the only thing I just, again, I feel like I'm not picking on British television or anything like that, but I felt like it was billed as a horror comedy. And I think Hugh Grant and Peter Capaldi kind of touched near that realm. But other than that, like I absolutely loved the movie. I think I could definitely I'd watch it again. Like it was good. It's like so weird, and like a lot of the things that I missed were in like the dream sequences that kind of tie in other stuff that's happening in the movie, which I thought was really cool. So definitely worth a watch. Like I actually really liked it.
Yeah, it's a little more artsy than I usually like to get into when it comes to like the cult factor element of it. But even outside of like the weird like dream sequence and the vision sequences and stuff like that, just like the plot like itself, like, hey, weird lady who's like a snake priestess is out here wearing crazy outfits. Hugh Grant's character on board immediately for snake cult gone wild here. It's like the first time he's paid attention to his home since he's like a kid. Like, oh wait, this is sus and stuff like that. And like, you know, Peter Capaldi being kind of like, you know, crotchety, but like also helpful. And then like his sister's like, oh, we're orphans. Since when? Oh, last spring. It's like, oh, okay. Like,
I feel like there's an age limit to that.
It was just like so many like, yeah, and then like, yeah, you had your local cop, you had like your random one-off victim and poor Kevin. I don't know. It does have weird times where it kind of maybe might be a little dry for people, but I don't know. I really think it's worth a watch. I think that I have to go A just because it's just so weird. It's such a weird addition to like the 80s horror, like oeuvre. It's like very different from anything else.
I agree. It is.
A, we did cult factor A. Well, you know what it's time for next? Everyone's favorite segment, the D-roll. The one last hat on a hat final category that we added because you can't stop us. We're out there. We can do what we want. It's our podcast. The categories for D-roll, of course, are cult classic, B movie, grindhouse, or trash. And, you know, hopefully we never show you trash. I know that there are some elements of this movie that edged in a trashy direction, but I feel like there's enough to redeem it that we don't have to consider it that.
Yeah, there were a couple scenes, but they weren't like gratuitous. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It wasn't like Last House on the Left.
They served the
kind of
plot
stuff.
to some level.
I mean, I've been talking about this movie a lot.
Right?
For me, it was going to be what?
Good.
I was just going to say, like, I always am going to want to say cult classic. This one might be the more difficult one because it is like simultaneously more highbrow and more lowbrow than a lot of the stuff we do. So it's kind of hard to like, but like whenever I think B movie, I'm like, that feels so dismissive though of the project that this movie's going for and the weird little gem that it is. So and even though I was a little disappointed and remain constantly disappointed by the effects of the worm, like Dionin itself, it's not that thing is like more like a presence. The real villain is Lady Sylvia Marsh, and she just rocks the entire show. It's almost like almost worth it to call it a cult classic just for Amanda Donahoe's crazy unhinged performance in this movie. So I'm leaning towards cult classic, but you can talk me down if you think I'm too close to the edge.
No, I think it's called classic, and I think you have to respect what they were going for here. I probably should have looked up the budget a little bit more. I think that hurt them tremendously. But again, like that's this style of movie though. Like it's, British movies were like this until like the 2000s. So like, I don't know. I think it's a cult classic. It's you're not going to see anything else like this ever.
Yeah. What I'm seeing is the budget was like $2 million. So it was not a very large budget. But yeah,
which I'm sure most of that went to actors and sets.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, especially considering it has not a sizable cast, but definitely like a decently sized cast with like a decent number of like big enough names that it would stand out. Maybe not at that point for some like Hugh Grant or anything, but yeah. All right, cool. Cult classic. We did it. The D roll happened. D for Dionin.
Yearning for the wormin.
Yeah. I will stand firm that I burn for the worm. All right. Well,
but,
I guess that
if you wanted to burn for something else.
So, next time on The Dark Side Drive-In, this one is a bit of a weird one, I will admit. But I actually think that we're all going to have a good time with it. It is 1984, I believe. Italian rodent classic, Rats: Night of Terror. The story of the distant future after an apocalypse. A nuclear holocaust happens in 2015, and then 225 years later, people live on the surface as primitives, so while like advanced people live underground in cities like that continue like to be modern like bastions of peace. And we get a group of like biker types who stumble upon a village full of murderous rats. So Rats: Night of Terror. You can find it on Tubi. You can find it on Pluto TV. You can find it on, it says it's on Apple TV. And it says Amazon Prime, but I don't trust that. I don't think it's for free on there. There you go. You excited, Shane, for the Night of Terror that features rats?
So, yes. Mainly because of the post-apocalyptic theme. Like, I love those movies, so I'm pretty excited. I've never seen this one, so yeah. Ready to roll.
I just love how, like, one of the premises is, in 2015, a nuclear holocaust happened. Now 225 years later, here's our movie. It's like, wait, what? Why'd you wait till like the very distant apocalypse? Like, it's very good. So there you go. Rats: Night of Terror. Rats: Night of Terror, that is. It's not like Rats, Night of Terror, or just one. No, there's a colon there. Rats: Night of Terror.
It's the possessive form of that rat's colon.
No, it's not possessive. There's no apostrophe. You're going to make me yearn for the burn of the worm. All right. Well, I think that'll probably do it, right? I will do the thing we usually do, which is thank Rebel Revolver for our theme song. It rules. People like it. I like it. You like it. We all like it. Check their social media for upcoming shows. I think they have a couple coming up. One might actually the weekend following the release of this episode, but check their socials to be shout out to them as always.
Yeah, and drummer for Rebel Revolver, PC Rowley, has a book. It all comes out in the wash. Check it out. It's all over Amazon. I think you can do audiobook or no, right?
It's on Kindle.
Or no, it's digital, right?
Yeah, you can get it on Kindle as well.
Yeah, Kindle. Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah. And
I don't know why I keep doing the audiobook thing. I don't know.
I don't know either. It's very strange. Like a very strange thing to keep saying.
He should narrate it. It'd be pretty dope. But yeah, check it out. Half the proceeds go to the Pittsburgh Humane Society. So if you want to help support a good organization and a good friend, give his book a look. Take a look in his book, Reading Rainbow.
Hey, more rhyming. All right. Well, I think that'll do it. There we go. We finally got The Lair of the White Worm done. It's such a weird movie.
Take 5 or whatever.
Hey, man. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff that tried to stop this episode from coming out, but much like Dionin, it emerged from the hole. I guess Dionin didn't really emerge from the hole. He stayed in the hole and died there. Never mind.
He kind of wiggled in the hole.
He did wiggle and do some roaring.
Yeah, but stay tuned. This should come out, or stay peeled. This should come out. You'll hear this, and then we'll have the intermission shortly after. And I've got some stuff I want to bring up for that, so pretty excited for that one. But yeah, well, I think that's all I had today, Stefan. Any closing thoughts?
Well, I was gonna say the stay cooled and stay ghouled, but it's kind of getting to be kind of cooler out as the summer wraps up. So I guess this might be the last time I can use the sign off "stay cooled and stay ghouled" for the autumn. I'll have to come up with a new one.
Yeah, I have to get a new one. Pulls out, goals out's over. Hot goal summer's over. We'll come up with some new ones.
Time for lukewarm ghoul autumn. It really rolls off the tongue.
That's it. That was it.
That was the one. Got it in one.
Dude, take it to the bank.
Straight to PNC.
Yeah. Well, I've been Shane.
And I've been Stefan. What was that? What was that pause?
I'm just messing with you.
Were you yearning for the wormin?
Yeah. Oh, man.
I will reaffirm that I yearn for the worm.
Oh, no. Bye.
Bye.
He thought he was in control. How wrong he was.
Come to the dark side, drive-in. It's the dark side, drive-in. Come to the dark side, drive-in. It's the dark side, drive-in movie club. From Dynamis Media comes a horror cyclopedia, watching movies from the gates of hell. Covers ripped from a blockbuster shell. Officer Bosch is the only good cop. Chuds and the stuff just can't be stopped. Things get hairy and the werewolf's there. Turn the corner and the prowler is there. It's the dark side, drive-in. It's the dark side, drive-in. Come to the dark side, drive-in. It's the dark side, drive-in movie club. Shane's the one who runs the show. He produces and keeps the flow. The Savini of the ones and twos. Only Jack Cordell has bigger shoes. Stefan does the bulk of the research. His descriptions just can't be besmirched. Lots of synopses are the top of lore. Just like Lamson, you'll be begging for more. It's the dark side, drive-in. It's the dark side, drive-in. Come to the dark side, drive-in. It's the dark side, drive-in movie club.
From the deepest corner of the darkest universe, two brave hosts battle through nameless hordes of ghoulish monsters most foul, all to bring you the eternal glory of the Dark Side Drive-In.
It's the dark side, drive-in. It's the dark side, drive-in. Come to the dark side, drive-in. It's the dark side, drive-in movie club. It's the dark side, drive-in. Come to the dark side, drive-in. It's the dark side, drive-in. It's the dark side, drive-in movie club.
Thank you. Have a nice